across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. Stand by for 3 electric hours of news, views and topical debate. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Get involved. Get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I absolutely promise to play your message out. That is, as long as you keep it family friendly. Know what I mean? It is Wednesday, May the 6th. Here's what's coming up. Is Zach Polanski's green dream unravelling? Is poisonous Polanski's party plummeting in the popularity stakes on the back of his serial self-aggrandising lies and the uncomfortable truth that he appears to have created a safe haven for Jew-hating anti-Semites? 0344 499 1000. Even Polanski's name is a lie. He's actually called David Paulden. Now this shape-shifting snake oil salesman admits to lying about being an official Red Cross spokesman, which he never was, and pretending he was an officially accredited hypnotherapist. Again, he was never that. What is it about this guy and his crazed policies? Is it all just attention seeking by a narcissist who doesn't care what he says, as long as it gets him noticed? What do you think? 0344 499 1000. You've got to worry about him, though. There are still people, for mysterious reasons, who are attracted to this guy, to this mouthy liar and his ludicrous policies. Let's legalise heroin and crack. Great policy, Zach. But that got you a few headlines, didn't it? What do you think about this guy? He's a charlatan, isn't he? 0344 499 1000. Also on today's action-packed show, as Labour MPs and the unions finally seem to realise that she's really not up to being our next Prime Minister, Angela Rayner is under fire for allegedly telling shameless political lies to a bunch of school kids. Brainwashing children? Really? What's wrong with her? 0344 499 1000. In other news, a career criminal with an astonishing 236 convictions walks free from court after being let off for nicking nearly 200 quid's worth of items from Holland and Barrett while he was on a community order for burglary. His sentence? A conditional discharge. And people ask why shoplifting prospers, why more and more people are taking to just nicking stuff from their local shops. It's simple. Because there are no punishments. 0344 499 1000. Also, the government greenlights another £112 million to be spent on migrant detention centres to provide foreign criminals with art classes, math lessons, 24-hour welfare care and in-house NHS treatment. These rejects are about to be kicked out of Britain. Why spend a fortune on them? 0344 499 1000. And finally, back to Zach Polanski. We're putting this A-grade weirdo, this dentally challenged weirdo, on the psychiatrist's couch to try to find out what makes him tick. Stay tuned for our expert diagnosis. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday afternoon together. Let's go straight over to my first guest. We've got a lot to get through today, folks. She is Talk's brilliant international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Welcome, Isabel.
Good afternoon, Kev.
Well, let me first ask you about Polanski. I mean, we do hear that there's been a 14% slump in the Green Party's popularity since he liked those tweets condemning those brave coppers who arrested the Golders Green stabbing suspect last week. he suggested, or he chimed in with the suggestion that those brave policemen, those courageous coppers, were guilty of police brutality, which of course they weren't. They were incredibly brave, keeping people safe. Ever since then, his popularity has been plummeting, and with it the popularity of the Green Party. He has today, or yesterday, it broke while I was on air yesterday, he lied about being an official spokesman for the British Red Cross. He told that lie when he was trying to get elected as the deputy leader of the Green Party. That succeeded. He also said he was a member of the hypnotherapists, a professional body. That was a lie as well. I mean, a picture is emerging of a man who just serially lies just to aggrandize himself, to improve his own fortunes, and frankly just to get noticed. I'm just wondering whether this guy, you know, he's a failed actor. He studied drama at the Dreaming Spires of Aberystwyth University. Clearly wanted to go into showbiz, but he's too ugly to make the grade in the wonderful world of entertainment. So he's gone into politics, showbiz for ugly people, politics. I don't think he gives a damn what he says. I don't think he gives a damn what he does, as long as it gets him noticed. He's an attention seeker. He's a narcissist.
I think he's a complete charlatan, and I'm not surprised that all this is coming out pretty rapidly. I mean, this guy is very new on the scene. It feels like only a few months ago that I was kind of Googling Zach Polanski, having realized belatedly that there was a buzz around this character. And he's sort of come from absolute invisibility to being a household name. And he's been subjected to so little scrutiny to date, and the minute that people are actually beginning to really pay attention to the frankly terrifying policy agenda of the Green Party, it emerges that he, as a character, just doesn't withstand scrutiny. I mean, what is it with politicians, high-profile politicians on the left, simply making up their credentials? This is awfully reminiscent of Rachel from Accounts and that other minister in Keir Starmer's government who pretended that he was a solicitor when in fact he wasn't. I mean, these are the...
Was that Jonathan Reynolds, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Remember him?
These are the exaggerations of people with CVs that are too weak to be honest about. And, you know, Zach Polanski's CV is utterly bizarre anyway. I'm actually all in favour of people from different backgrounds coming into politics, you know, especially people from successful business backgrounds or people who are brilliant in their fields. But I don't know what Zach Polanski is brilliant at. I just don't know.
He's certainly arguably a very poor politician because, you know, liking those tweets last week accusing the cops in Golders Green of police brutality was a catastrophic thing to do politically, because, you know, you're just before the local elections and they will undoubtedly, those tweets will have an effect, which is why he apologised for them. Let's have a quick listen to him. He was on BBC Radio 4's flagship news programme Today this morning. Here he is talking about his lies.
You've made a series of false or disputed claims about jobs you've had in the past. Why, for example, did you say you were a spokesperson for the British Red Cross when they are absolutely clear that, though a supporter of theirs, you were never a spokesperson for them?
So I hosted various fundraisers for the British Red Cross, and indeed I would go on stage and speak for them about the amazing work they do tackling humanitarian crises, on the climate crisis, and indeed for refugees all around the world. I used the wrong word and I accept that. It's important, though, and I accept this, that, you know, they don't support any political party, and I've made sure that's been taken down.
I mean, I'm playing that, Isabel, in the interest of balance. That's what he's saying. But he says I used the wrong word. No, mate, you lied. You lied. He said that he was a part of the hypnotherapist professional body. He wasn't. Of course, that was during the days when he conned women into believing that he could increase the size of their breasts through the power of hypnotism. That's where he got his nickname, Hypnotits. Shouldn't really say that this time on a family show, but that is his nickname. it just strikes me that a picture is emerging of this guy, as you quite rightly say, Isabel, now that we've turned the microscope on him, because he's so much in the news, we start to have a look at him. A picture is emerging of a man who just lies at will for whatever suits his purposes.
I mean, he is only the sort of the head of the snake, if you like. I mean, the problem is with Green candidates, it's much wider than just their leader. It's not as if this problem, it's much more than a problem. It's a real political threat for our country. It's not as if he were to fall by the wayside, as I'm sure he will, sooner than later, that actually removes the issue. Because what we've got across the Green Party is some extraordinarily questionable views and ideas for the future of our country. And it will be very interesting to see how well the party does in the next few days when the actual numbers are counted. And perhaps they will do well on this occasion, but I suspect by the time of the next big electoral test, that bubble will long ago have vaporized. But for the time being, there's a point I made on Jeremy Kyle's show this morning. It actually suits those of us on the right to have the left divided in this way.
Yeah, and he is discovering, I do believe, that actually the vast majority of people in Britain, British people, absolutely detest anti-Semitism. He's discovering that. And I'm not accusing him of anti-Semitism, but I am accusing him of creating a kind of a safe haven for Jew-hating anti-Semites. Steve Reid, the Labour cabinet minister, wrote at the weekend that he saw what happened. He said all the Jew-haters, all the anti-Semites in the Corbyn Labour Party left to join the Green Party. He has encouraged that. But what he's discovering, thanks to those stupid tweets that he liked about police brutality last week, is that the people of Britain do not like anti-Semitism, and he may well pay the price. I should read you. A Green Party spokesman said of the Times report detailing his lies about the Red Cross and the Hypnotherapists Association. The Green Party spokesman said, instead of apologising, the same paper that published an incredible, offensive, anti-Semitic cartoon of Zach Polanski is devoting column inches to bottom-of-the-barrel stories. These are not I don't know anything about that alleged anti-Semitic cartoon, by the way, but what I do know is these are not bottom-of-the-barrel stories. This man has, for better or for worse, become the leader of a significant political party that may or may not do rather well in the locals. We await to see. But he should be scrutinised, and the Times did what all journalists should do. They investigated a prominent politician, and let's face it, he didn't come out of this process well.
And I think that there will be an awful lot more that comes out. I mean, Zach Polanski is actually a very inexperienced politician, inexperienced at the exposure and scrutiny that comes with being at the highest level. And as a result, he's making really bad misjudgments. And that kind of experience, unless you're extremely clever, which I don't think he is, that kind of inexperience can prove fatal pretty quickly, politically fatal. It's unusual for somebody who is so inexperienced to be thrust into the limelight with this speed. And I think there'll be a lot more mistakes. I think a lot more will come out about his past. I admire anyone that puts themselves forward, even if I despise their views, even if I think that their views and their policies are going to be disastrous. It takes guts to go into frontline politics, but you've got to be real, you've got to be genuine, and you've got to be honest. And I don't really think that it stacks up in his case.
I agree. Let's see what happens tomorrow now, isn't it? That's when we'll get the results coming through on Friday. Now, just a quick word from you, Isabel, if you will, about the Westminster psychodrama. The word is that both even left-wing Labour MPs and the trade unions have realised Angela Rayner not really up to the job of being Prime Minister. So all the money, smart money now, is on Andy Burnham, who apparently has pinpointed a safe seat that he can inherit up in the north and could be in Westminster fairly soon as an MP. They're calling it the Trojan horse plot to smuggle Andy Burnham back into Westminster via a safe seat. If that happens, and I'm told that process is well underway, and he could be in Westminster pretty damn quickly, these are going to be tough times for Keir Starmer, aren't they?
I mean, I don't really think it's a Trojan horse, is it?
No, it's not much of a Trojan horse. You're right. Yeah,
it's no secret. It's just basically a horse.
It's a Trojan horse with big windows.
Yeah, it's just a horse. The bizarrest thing about this story is the word that Andy Burnham is supposed to sign some kind of loyalty pledge in return for the Labour Party machine allowing him to stand. I found that utterly bizarre. I mean, it's widely reported today that he's supposed to have to sign something saying he's not going to challenge Keir Starmer if he gets back in. Well, I think any piece of paper that was written on would quite quickly be torn up. And look, I'm looking forward to it. If he comes back, it's going to be full drama and the hope that maybe Keir Starmer will be replaced with something better, or might it be even worse?
I think who knows? I mean, Burnham, I think would probably be an improvement. He's sort of a semi-human, unlike Starmer, but he's very left-wing, so frightening times ahead. Can I just quickly get you on this? This is Angela Rayner speaking to some school kids.
Who's talking about all the NHS and Nigel Farage? I can't really put all the blame on him, because I actually think he'd be better than Keir Starmer.
Nigel Farage says that he wants a system that is a more insurance-style system. So that means you have to pay, and that means that it's not free at the point of use anymore. I think that is really dangerous territory. I'd be okay in that system, by the way. I'd benefit from it now. But when I was growing up, I wouldn't have benefited from it. And my son probably wouldn't have survived if that was the system at the time. So I think it's really dangerous what Nigel Farage is offering in the NHS. It sounds plausible, but once you go down that route, other people will not be able to access that service. And I think that's really a terrible thing to do to people. When they need the service the most, we should be able to provide it for them.
Well, with all due sympathy and respect to Angela Rayner for the plight of her poor son, who was saved by the NHS, that notwithstanding, that's outrageous stuff to be saying to little kids. These are her political opinions. She's brainwashing school children there. That's wrong, isn't it?
There is so much wrong about this, and actually it really winds me up as a mother. I don't know, perhaps you'll tell me, Kev, how old those boys are. They look about 16. Are they 16 or younger?
I think they're slightly younger than that, about 14.
I mean, we on Talk would never, ever publish something like that. We would never broadcast something like that without being absolutely sure that those boys and their parents had consented to it. And even then, frankly, I'd be pretty uncomfortable about parading any young person in a way that was so identifiable in a highly political discussion. We all know, those of us that are involved in frontline politics and the media, the absolute hatred that comes your way if you so far as dare question the received narrative from the Labour Party and the left about the NHS, never mind express any support, particularly as a young person, for Nigel Farage. And I think it was utterly irresponsible of Angela Rayner and her office to do what they did there, unless there was clear permission from all concerned. And even if there was, I would say that Angela Rayner and her office have a duty of care, knowing full well what kind of attention that exposure would bring. They have a duty of care to make a judgment that it is totally inappropriate to broadcast something like that.
Yeah, she shouldn't be saying it. That's political propaganda. I mean, I think it's
I'm
probably...
much more concerned about the exposure of the young lads. You know, as somebody who is constantly targeted, and I'm sure you are too, Kev, for my political views, I am really concerned about that.
Yeah, I think there's so much to worry about with that video. She shouldn't be doing that. The kids should not be exposed to national publicity. You're right. You're absolutely right, Isabel. Great to have you on the show as always. Thank you very much. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor. Next up, we're going to talk to the former chief executive of the Jewish Leadership Council, Simon Johnson, get his take on Zach Polanski and the Green Party. Is the Green Party becoming more and more a haven for Jew haters? That next, stay tuned.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He is the former chief executive of the Jewish Leadership Council, Simon Johnson. Welcome, Simon.
Good afternoon, Kev. How are you?
I'm okay. I want to ask you about the Green Party. We have to be slightly careful. You understand there are broadcasting rules ahead of tomorrow's local elections. But I can say that there are 30 Green candidates at various local elections around the country who are under investigation for very serious anti-Semitism, calling Jewish people cockroaches, etc., etc. Steve Reed, the Labour cabinet minister at the weekend, wrote, he said, all the awful anti-Semites that I saw in Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party have left and they've joined the Green Party. So my question to you, Simon, is do you fear that the Green Party, that Zach Polanski, wittingly or unwittingly, has created some kind of safe haven for Jew-hating anti-Semites?
There is no question in my mind, Kev, that many of the people who were supporters of Jeremy Corbyn when he was leader of the Labour Party have now found their political home within the Green Party, and that some of the views that they are expressing are abhorrent. The number of anti-Semitic investigations is at the same level that we were talking about when Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party. And it's no real surprise to me that people with those views are attracted to the Green Party. Zach Polanski, the leader, I watched him on another broadcaster on Sunday morning with a very straight face, tried to say that the pro-Palestinian marches that many are describing as hate marches taking place in central London were actually peace marches, as he called them. And really, that made me question which part of globalizing the Intifada or calling for death to the IDF or for jihad does he believe is peaceful? So if your leader is saying that, if the deputy leader of the party, Mohsin Ali, is calling the Hamas attacks on Israel that killed 1,200 people on October the 7th an act of resistance, then it's no wonder that people with these sort of abhorrent views are gravitating towards the Green Party.
Caroline Lucas, the former lone Green MP, they've got a few more than that now, but she used to be famously the only Green MP in Parliament. I believe she represented Brighton, if I remember rightly. She sort of harks back to what we used to think the Green Party was. Decent people who care about the environment, who care about the planet, a little bit hippy-dippy, you know, not particularly important, but nice people. That's what she harks back to. She is absolutely dismayed and is condemning various Green candidates for their anti-Semitic statements, including that awful one I just quoted you, one of them saying Jews are cockroaches. I mean, this is the kind of opinion that seems to be held by people who have become candidates in these local elections for the Green Party. The Green Party needs to have a look at this seriously, doesn't it?
Well, it was an interesting intervention from Caroline Lucas, and I think it really stripped back the mask from the Green Party. But again, as I say, I'm not really surprised that they're attracting these people. The local council elections that people are voting in tomorrow are meant to deal with things like libraries and the arts and potholes and bins and libraries. But last week, the Green Party leadership published an election video in which all they talked about was asking the government to sanction the government of Israel for what they claim to be a genocide. So instead of talking about local issues, that is what these elections are about, they are trying to campaign on these anti-Israel issues. And I'm afraid that they are attracting people who are unable to make the distinction between criticism of the government of Israel and attacks on Jewish people in Great Britain, because they are holding Jewish people in Great Britain responsible for what they perceive to be the actions of the Israeli government, and at times are not even hiding their anti-Jewish racism in some of the statements that you've referred to earlier, Kevin.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, people at these elections must make up their own mind. If they decide to vote Green, that's down to them. But I think that everybody should have a close look at this party, because there are elements or there are factors involved that are not pleasant, to say the least. Now, when Zach Polanski last week liked those tweets suggesting that those incredibly courageous coppers who tackled the stabbing suspect were guilty of police brutality, what that suggested to me was a guy, Zach Polanski, and he's not the only one, but it suggested to me this is a guy who's not like pausing to think, well, what's happened here? Two innocent men have almost been stabbed to death by a maniac, and your response is to worry about the way that the assailant was treated by the police. That suggests to me a complete indifference to the fate of those Jewish men. Do you see where I'm coming from? Do you see where I think Zach Polanski was coming from?
I do, and I watched his interview on Sunday, and I was really astonished by how dismissive he was of the fear and concern within the Jewish community. And of course, if anybody challenges him on this, he says, well, I'm Jewish, and please don't undermine the way I think. Well, I can tell you, Kev, I'm Jewish, and I am not surprised that Jewish people are feeling a high degree of concern, because there have been violent attacks on people and property, and that what you're seeing from a growing political party is not only a refusal to condemn that activity, but actually an attempt to almost whitewash what's happening. And when Jewish people turn around and say that a lot of this is being caused by what we're seeing on some of these marches, he has the audacity to describe those marches as peace marches. I have never heard such a misinterpretation of what is happening as what I heard from Zach Polanski in that interview the other day. And I think people need to take a long, hard look at him, because it's all very well him calling out and saying, well, I'm Jewish, please don't criticize me. But I can tell you there are a lot of Jewish people who are very, very disturbed by what is happening, both from him as the leader, from Mothin Ali as his deputy leader, and from many of the candidates who are putting themselves forward for election tomorrow.
Simon, it's excellent to have you on the show. Thank you very much. Come on again soon. Former Chief Executive there of the Jewish Leadership Council, Simon Johnson. Now, I should read you a statement from the Green Party. A spokesman said, "We are standing over 4,500 candidates in these local elections, the vast majority of whom we are proud to have representing us. Where examples are brought to our attention that do not align with the Green Party's values, we are looking into them, and in some cases, candidates have already been suspended. We are investing in strengthening our vetting procedures to prevent inappropriate candidates from slipping through the net. Candidates who are under investigation have been asked not to campaign." That is an official Green Party statement. Let's go to break now. When we come back, Samara Gill will be in the studio. We're going to revisit that story about Angela Rayner and her propaganda statements to school children. Really bizarre. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Samara Gill's in the studio. Welcome, Samara. Let's talk about Angela Rayner. She's been to a school and frankly, sort of spewed a load of propaganda, Labour Party propaganda, at these unsuspecting kids. Let's remind ourselves of Angela Rayner's appearance in the classroom.
I used to talk about all the NHS and Nigel Farage. I can't really put all the blame on him, because I actually think he'd be better than Keir Starmer.
Nigel Farage says that he wants a system that is a more insurance-style system. So that means you have to pay, and that means that it's not free at the point of use anymore. I think that is really dangerous territory. I'd be okay in that system, by the way. I'd benefit from it now. But when I was growing up, I wouldn't have benefited from it. And my son probably wouldn't have survived if that was the system at the time. So I think it's really dangerous what Nigel Farage is offering in the NHS. It sounds plausible, but once you go down that route, other people will not be able to access that service. And I think that's really a terrible thing to do to people. When they need the service the most, we should be able to provide it for them.
My view on that is she can say it in Parliament, in the House of Commons. She can say it, you know, when she talks to adults. But, you know, to tell these kids Nigel Farage wants to privatise the NHS, I mean, I'm pretty certain that's not true. And she's spewing Labour propaganda at impressionable schoolboys who are at the formative stage of their lives. It's wrong on so many levels.
I mean, wait a second. Aren't these school kids the ones that Labour was so desperately trying to give the vote to just a couple months ago? I mean, their whole thing was, oh, let's give 16-year-olds a vote, because they were under the misapprehension that all these young schoolboys and girls are total lefties and that'll be an easy vote for them. It's just not true. So it's so interesting to see her go into schools, say these things that are not true. I do not believe it's the reform policy, actually, to privatise the NHS. That's just not it's not a fact. I mean, we're talking about, she brings her son into it as well. Isn't this the same son that she used 160 grand of his trust in order to buy her house in Hove? Allegedly. Yes, yeah. But I'm just wondering, you know, why is she bringing him into this, and why is she bringing his survival into this? I just think it is such low-hanging fruit for Labour to go for, to try and do this, and it's such a confected video. It's not even, you know, you're in the schoolyard and someone says something. It's this very choreographed, horrible thing.
Put it out there? I mean, it's really wrong. Let me know what you think, folks. I mean, should politicians like Andrew Rayner be going into schools, talking to kids, and basically giving them their party's propaganda? That's what that was. She's perfectly free to do that to any adult in the country, at meetings, in the House of Commons, wherever. But surely she shouldn't be doing it to young kids in school, should she? Let me know what you think. 03444991000. While I've got you here, Samara, and still on kids, Labour government-backed guidance down in Wales has urged wait for this one, this is a good one, has urged childcare workers to report nursery school toddlers for racism and to call the authorities if they suspect the little kids could be guilty of hate crimes. This is insane, isn't it?
I mean, the nursery should be teaching children colours and numbers. They shouldn't be monitoring them for ideological offences. I mean, it reminds me of that story that you broke probably almost a year ago, whereby a kid, I think they were 9 years old, was reported for a hate crime saying that their friend smelt of fish.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and that... I remember that was madness, and that story went completely viral.
So here we are again.
Yeah, here we are again, and it's sort of this weird sort of thought police type culture that we're trying to impose on our children. You know, parents informing against their own 2-year-olds. That's the sort of state that some of these guidance claims want you to live under, and I think it's really concerning because, you know, kids are going to say things. I think in all these playgrounds you get different things flown about. It doesn't mean that you have to sort of refer your child to an agency.
Well, there's two things about this. I mean, I think, you know, pillorying or you know, going for little kids, these nursery school kids, what are they, 6 and 7 years old or something? Nursery school children, and accusing a 6-year-old, you're being a racist. Kid wouldn't even know what you meant. You know, kids say things, kids do things that aren't necessarily acceptable in polite society. That's the nature of the beast, as it were. But I suspect what this is about is that so the authorities can keep an eye on these kids because they fear their parents might be racists. By the way, racism is not inherent, I'm not condoning it, but it is not inherently illegal. You know, so this is all about monitoring parents and their families to make sure they're not racists. It's rather kind of Chairman Mao-ish, isn't it?
It's exactly out of that playbook. And one of the worst bits about this story is that actually that guidance was taxpayer funded.
Yeah, I know. So, it's official Labour government
guidance. So the taxpayer dollars have been going into this. And, you know, it says that the nurseries have been advised to report children for racist incidents and it's obviously backed by Labour, as we spoke about. But the issue here really is that, you know, the public services, they're already stretched. You've got taxpayers basically reasonably asking, where is the priority? I feel like a lot of these nurseries are underfunded. They don't get enough in early learning at all. And this is where the taxpayer dollars are going. I just don't understand quite what Labour's prerogative is here. I agree with you. I do think it's a very sinister ploy to try and implicate parents into then children's behaviour and have this sort of don't tell secretive nature to potential racism that might be going on. But it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what would the rule, what would happen then if a toddler does say something inherently racist? Who are they then referred to after that? Do they then go into toddler prison? Seriously,
toddler prison.
Just seriously, like this is the short-term thinking that Labour government policies has been taking, or at least this specific policy.
Yeah, Wormwood Scrubs Kids Department.
Genuinely, what does that look like? It's a bleak dystopian future that they're trying to paint.
Yeah, when you start politicising children, this politicises children. This treats 6-year-old kids, as serious potential hate criminals. That's ridiculous. When you start treating children like this, you are going down the road of Maoist China, where children reported adults for their transgressions and so on and so forth. This is where they're taking us. This is where this government is taking us to investigate, maybe arrest 6-year-old kids for alleged racist hate crimes because they said something nasty at nursery school. Is that the kind of country you want to live in, folks? If you do, I'd love to hear from you. But maybe it isn't the kind of country you want to live in. It certainly isn't the kind of country I want to live in. Let me know what you think. 03444991000. Get on the phone. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. Big thanks to Samara Gill. Next up, we're going to talk to a man who knows all about the Strait of Hormuz. He's going to tell us, unless they unblock that critical, narrow stretch of water off the coast of Iran, you know what we're talking about, through which 20% of the world's oil used to travel. You've got oil, you've got fertilizers, you've got medicines. Unless we unblock that blockade, trust me, in 2, 3, 4 weeks, we are really going to know about it. You think petrol prices are going up now? You wait. If they don't unblock the Strait of Hormuz, petrol prices will be off the scale. Everything will be off the scale. Food shortages, medicine shortages, fuel prices sky high. We'll talk to a man who knows all about it. That next. Stay tuned.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight over to my next guest. He's the Managing Director of Investments at Tufton Investment Management. They have a lot to do with the Strait of Hormuz. We'll find out exactly what the company does in just a second. But let's talk to Nikos Petrakakos. Welcome, Nikos.
Hi, Kevin. Nice to be here.
Well, first of all, you can sort of cut us in on exactly what your company does, but I know you have a lot of investment in the vessels that go through, or should we say used to go through, the Strait of Hormuz. There used to be a constant stream of ships going through that narrow stretch of sea off the coast of Iran, carrying 20% of the world's oil supplies. So now that that has been cut off, it's having an increasingly catastrophic effect. The good news, I guess, just breaking now, Nikos, that Trump and Iran may be close to some kind of agreement which would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Let's hope that does happen. But given right now we have a blockade, no ships are going through. Chinese particularly upset. They're telling Trump and the Iranians, can you unblock this, please? But it's bad for the East, it's bad for the Middle East, it's bad for the West, it's bad for the whole world. Unless we get this Strait of Hormuz unblocked soon, how long before we start to feel the catastrophic effects of this blockade, Nikos?
I would start by saying we have been lucky so far. There was a lot of stockpiling ahead of this. I think China was expecting something to happen. So that has dampened some of the effects and has bought us some time to today. But at the same time, I think we are probably getting closer to a point where we start feeling it. You look at the oil prices, 100, 110, 90, hovering back and down. Well, after Russia, it was over 150. And this is certainly a bigger situation than Russia in terms of the oil flows. So I would think we are coming at a point where either the markets are not properly accounting for what's coming, or it's just going to take probably another month or two, I think, before we reach the critical point.
And apart from oil, fertilizer, a lot of fertilizer comes through the Strait of Hormuz. That's very important, obviously, for agriculture. And I keep hearing medicine. Do medicines come through that strait as well? So these three very key products are not getting through at the moment. As you say, I understand that when the Iranian war started, and when the Strait of Hormuz first began to become a no-go area, that there was an unprecedented amount of oil on ships out there all over the world, which again has moderated the effects of this blockade. But this can't go on for long. What would you say, Nikos? How long, if this isn't unblocked, how long before we really start to see soaring fuel prices, empty shelves, food shortages, medicine shortages, fertilizer shortages? How long before it really starts to hurt?
I think it's a more stepped approach. So the medicine and more finished goods, I would say those there's flexibility to source them from elsewhere. The issue is more the energy flows and the fertilizer flows. Those two things, it's hard to find a replacement from elsewhere. And it's more the downstream effect. Obviously, everything has impact from crude oil, whether it's energy, whether it's plastics. Same thing with fertilizer. When 20% of it is suddenly gone, it's hard to replace that.
Tell us about your company. Do you actually run ships, or I mean, how many ships have you got out there in Hormuz hoping to get through at the moment?
So we're lucky to have none. So luckily all our crew are safe. When this happened, we immediately notified our crew and our counterparties that we should not be trading in the area if there were any plans to do so. So we were lucky with that. We do own ships. We invest primarily in shipping and maritime. We have a fleet of 31 vessels at the moment, of all different types, both tankers that carry different oil products, dry bulk. We used to have containers, but we have a pretty diverse fleet.
But you fortunately, did you predict there were going to be problems? Hence, you got your ships out of there.
Not at all. I think we just got lucky.
Just got lucky.
Yeah.
Go on.
I would say the key thing to understand is shipping is usually hidden from the world. But 90% of everything you touch has been on a ship at some point in its life, whether it's as a raw material, energy, or as a finished good. And it's a big deal. And regardless of what Trump and his administration agrees with Iran, I don't think this is going to open immediately. So, even if we come to an agreement now, the pain will be felt for a while.
As you're in the business, Nikos, how have you felt about what's been going on since the beginning of the Iran war, end of February? Was it February the 28th, I do believe? I mean, what's your view? Did the Strait of Hormuz occur to Trump and his gang, after they started this war? Because that's what it looks like to me.
I doubt that it did. I think they probably expected it.
Okay.
To what degree, I can't be sure. Maybe they thought it will not happen immediately. I don't want to speculate too far on that.
But I mean, in terms of this dispute, I mean, what has happened here? Let me get your thoughts on this. I mean, before there was a kind of, shall we say, uneasy agreement that you left the Strait of Hormuz alone. Everybody needs it. China needs it. America needs it. Britain needs it. We all need it. Leave it alone. The Iranians were happy with that. Since the war started, the Iranians have kind of sort of become fixated on their possession of the Strait of Hormuz. We control it, and they've used it as their big bargaining chip. So in a way, the tectonic plates of this situation have shifted, and Iran has become far more possessive about the Strait of Hormuz, and that's not a good thing, is it?
It's their only leverage, unfortunately. So they're going to use whatever leverage they have.
And how many ships did you have altogether at your company? How many around?
We have 31 vessels at the moment.
So I gather that 20 million barrels in normal conditions, about 130 tankers pass through the Strait of Hormuz every day, carrying 20 million barrels of oil. I mean, when you just stop that, that is pretty catastrophic, isn't it?
100%. And the key thing is the Gulf was primarily in past disruptions, is that buffer. They can move their production higher to make up for it. Now, you're expecting the rest of the world to try to cover some of that, and we can't. Over time, I think the world can adapt. Human ingenuity is good at finding ways during hardship. So I think if this were to become a permanent fixture in the world and complete shutdown, there's going to be a lot of pain, but I think we'll find ways to cope already. Some of the fertilizer is being trucked out through other sources. So if oil prices go high enough, it will start to justify other countries and others coming in. So I would tend to stay away from the complete catastrophe, but still, I mean, even a price of $150
just just a small catastrophe.
Yeah, I mean, but even $150 per barrel, that will be a real pain that will be felt by the common consumer.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the situation in that entire region has been very volatile since the end of February when the war started. As I said to you at the start of our conversation, there are signs, story out today, that Trump and the Iranians may be poised to make some kind of a deal which would reopen this Strait of Hormuz and indeed bring peace to the region. That's the idea. If that deal was agreed tonight, Nikos, and the strait reopened, would you put your ship straight back in there?
No, not right away. And I think it will take some time. So I'll give you one example. In the Red Sea with the Houthis, over a year ago is when that agreement came with Trump at the time. Ships have still not returned through the Suez Canal and all that.
So would you wouldn't put your ships back in because you feel could be dangerous for your sailors, I'm assuming?
Correct. I mean, and honestly, even if we were to say, yes, take the ships through, the captain of the ship has the final say. If they do not consider it safe, they can veto any order you give them. So this is not going to be a suddenly agreement done, everyone's going to go right through. You saw it with Gaza and everything, and just because you have an agreement, people will still wait to see, is this going to hold? Is this truly safe? It will take time for this to fully open. I
mean, your business has become very complicated, very difficult, right?
It is. With shipping, it's a bit peculiar. So usually when you have disruptions like this, it's shipping tends to benefit in the short term and potentially even in the midterm. Usually inefficiencies help with the industry. So suddenly when you have to, instead of, most of this oil out of the Gulf goes to Asia, when instead of it having that relatively short distance, now it needs to come from the US or elsewhere in the Atlantic to go to Asia. Those are longer distances that help shipping. But obviously if something is to stay long-term and catastrophic for the global economy, that ends up being negative for shipping in the long run as well.
And I assume that your difficulties and all the difficulties that surround these kind of conflicts, these wartime conflicts, they mean you have to put your prices up. As you say, obviously, because of the difficulties, the price of oil goes up. Everything goes up. The price goes up. And in the end, it's ordinary people that feel that in their pockets, right?
That's right.
Well,
I think we're all hoping for this to come to a resolution sooner or later.
Well, we certainly are, Nikos. And, well, thank you for coming on. I wish you and your business all the best. And let's keep our fingers crossed about this potential deal between Donald Trump and the Iranians that's going on right now. Thank you very much to Nikos Petrokakos, Managing Director of Investments at Tufton Investment Management. Next up, Lord John Redwood will join us to go through some of the big stories of the day. Lots to talk about, obviously. And later on, Jake Wallace-Simons will join us. He'll be interesting on the rising anti-Semitism problem we have here. All that's still to come. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Lots to come during this hour. Later on in this hour, we're going to be discussing this kind of career criminal. Petty criminal, really. Just burglary, shoplifting. So he goes into Holland and Barrett's. He nicks 192 quid's worth of stuff. Ends up in court. It's his 237th offence. 237th offence. Whilst he did that shoplifting while he was on a community order for a burglary offence. Guess what his sentence was? Conditional discharge. Conditional discharge. 237th offence. So they say, how come everybody's shoplifting? Why is shoplifting exploding? Why is everybody doing it? Well, you got your answer there, haven't you? Absolutely no punishment. So we've got to go back to convicting people of these crimes and punishing them, don't you think? Shouldn't you be punished for shoplifting, particularly if you've done it 236 times before? It's ridiculous. We'll talk about that later in the hour. First up, though, let's go through some of the big stories of the day with my next guest, the former Conservative Cabinet Minister, Lord John Redwood. Welcome, John.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Well, look, let's first of all talk about Zach Polansky, the Green Party leader. And I want to get your take on, you know, in your day, would you ever have seen that kind of conversation? Because I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. In the last week, he has apologised. This is Zach Polansky, the leader of the Green Party, for liking 2 tweets that suggested those courageous coppers who arrested the Golders Green stabbing suspect for suggesting they were guilty of police brutality. He apologised. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so I like a lot of tweets. You know, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry. And today the Times is revealing that he lied about being an official spokesman for the British Red Cross. He's not. He never was. He said, yeah, I used the wrong word. No, you lied. He also said he was part of the hypnotherapists' official professional association because he used to earn his living, apparently persuading women that he could increase the size of their breasts through the power of hypnotism. He was never a member of the hypnotherapists' professional association. Lie, lie, lie. He just lies at will, and yet he is the leader of a very significant political party. They're on the rise. I mean, why is it that someone like this seems to prosper in modern Britain, John, in your view?
Well, he hasn't prospered yet, has he? I mean, he's had some favourable opinion polls, so we'll have to see how he gets on with actual polls. I do hope people will have second thoughts. Those who've been telling the pollsters that they quite like the idea of a left-wing challenger sorting everything out, I would hope would see some of these stories and say, you know what, that isn't the right man to be leading a council, let alone my country. And I think he's learning the hard way that if you want to be one of the top players in British politics with plenty of access to the media, you're going to have people crawling all over everything you say and do and claim.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look good that you've been fibbing all the time. I mean, it's something he shares in common with 1 or 2 of the Labour cabinet members, of course, who made up some parts of their curriculum vitae, but at least they haven't then gone on to go tweeting in favour of enemies of the country and in favour of Iran and all the things that Polansky has been doing at a time when lots of families in this country, Jewish families, are suffering very badly.
It's obviously the local elections tomorrow. You have to be careful, but I am able to say that 30 Green candidates at the local elections around the country are under investigation for serious anti-Semitism. The Labour Cabinet Minister, Steve Reid, wrote in one of the papers at the weekend that all the anti-Semites, the Jew haters that he despised in Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, have left and joined the Green Party. Zach Polansky appears to have created a nice safe haven for Jew-hating anti-Semites. That's not a good thing, is it?
Well, it certainly isn't. And at last we've got a unified front from Labour getting there, as well as the Conservatives, saying that we really do have to take Jew hatred very seriously in this country. There have been too many violent incidents, and too many Jewish families are scared of going out. They're scared of going to shops. They're scared of going to their synagogue. They need police to accompany them or to be present when they're trying to go to their synagogue. It's just not good enough in a free democratic society. And all senior politicians should want to root that out. And I would urge the other parties to make common cause with Labour and the Conservatives and say, we now need a response from all of us to say this is unacceptable. People committing these offences will be reported. And the criminal justice system has then got to take strong action as well. Like your previous point, if you want to stop something, there has to be some punishment when people commit a crime.
Yeah, now, Keir Starmer, I think, you know, Labour, constitutionally, institutionally, have always been pretty diffident about anti-Semitism. It's not like high on their agenda of importance. That isn't to in any way suggest that the current Labour members are anti-Semitic or anything like that. But I think Keir Starmer has always been, like most of the Labour politicians, quite laid back about the problem of anti-Semitism. But I think he has been genuinely shocked by the explosion that we've seen in the last few months, and particularly culminating in last week's horror in Golders Green. So I don't doubt his sincerity in stating that he's shocked and horrified by all of this. But what I do doubt his intention to do anything concrete about it. All we've had from him have been virtue signalling words and no action. He hasn't actually come up with anything that might actually tackle the rise of anti-Semitism. He's just said things like there's no place for this kind of hatred on our streets. Well, we know that, Keir, but what are you going to do about it? He doesn't seem to have any plan.
No, you're right that we don't yet see the actions, but I think something did change in the last week, because he did get a whole load of people together in Downing Street who do have powers and have responsibilities. He started to look as if he'd grasped the fundamental point that if you're Prime Minister of this great country, you're Prime Minister of all the different groups and all the different religions, and you have a duty to all of them. You can't pick and choose depending on who they voted for. And we now want him to use the powers of the state to do the things which the police can do, the criminal justice system can do, the educational system can do, and so forth. And there were one or two new measures, weren't there, to try and tackle anti-Semitism on university campuses, for example, by making them vigilant and report it more. But it comes back to what you and I have been saying about different things in the last few minutes, that when you have a crime wave, and this anti-Semitism is another crime wave, just as shoplifting is a crime wave, you've not only got to have tough words, but then you need to target the worst offenders and make sure that they are put behind bars as an exemplary punishment.
Indeed. Now, I've got to go off on a tangent here and ask you what you think about this. A lot of people who are hoping to go on holiday abroad in the next few weeks are very, very worried, because the government's given the airlines the right to cancel flights because of jet fuel shortages. Some people say they're cancelling flights because they've had to put their prices up and they can't fill the aeroplanes, but that's beside the point. So when you go to the airport and you're hoping for your flight in these difficult and uncertain circumstances, perhaps you might have a drink while you're waiting. Michael O'Leary, the boss of Ryanair, is calling for a 2-pint minimum in airports before people get on the plane. Now, I'm not condoning drinking and getting drunk before you get on aeroplanes, but I do think whether or not you have a couple of pints at the airport, that is a matter of individual choice, individual freedom, and I don't think we should be cracking down on that. What's your thought?
No, I think it's not a very good business move. I think all airlines are quite right to say we don't want drunks on the plane, and if people are behaving badly already by the time they get on the plane, maybe they shouldn't be allowed to stay on the flight, because there are safety requirements on flights. But this is not about that, is it? And it's about something else. Maybe it's also connected with the business model about who actually sells drinks and food to people when they get on the plane. And I don't think it's a good idea to start lecturing your customers on what they should have eaten and drunk hours before you actually let the flight take off. I don't think that's going to be popular with the public.
It's not going to be popular because, as I say, nobody is, don't have 8 pints, but if I want 2 or maybe even 3, I'm not sure that I would at 7 in the morning, but some people seem to like that. That's my choice. I don't like the idea of people like Michael O'Leary and the government just cracking down rules, regulations, restricting our behaviour all the time. I'm sick of it.
No, so am I. And you don't want to have to fill in another questionnaire before you can get on your flight, do you? Can you please remember everything you've eaten and drunk in the last 12 hours? No, I can't remember all that, and it's none of your business.
Yeah, certainly won't be able to remember if I have 5 pints at 7 in the morning. But moving on, what do you think about this one, John? Again, slightly off-piste, but a story that caught my eye. It's Labour Party government-backed guidance to nursery schools in Wales, childcare workers at nursery schools. So you're talking about kids, I think, who are 6, 5 and 6, 7.
Well, nursery schools are younger than that.
Yeah, well, okay, nursery schools, I'm not an expert on this kind of thing, but they're being urged to report racist toddlers to the police. So if a kid comes in and says something racist or does something they decide is racist or dubious, these childcare workers are being given guidance. This is guidance backed by the government that they should report these little kids to the police. Come on.
Well, it's a massive waste of police time, and it's an abnegation of responsibility for the teachers and the parents. And what you do as a teacher, if you see unreasonable comments or unpleasant behaviour in a little one, is you correct them there and then, don't you? And you have to go on correcting them by verbal means until they get it right. And if there is a more persistent problem, then the teacher, I'm afraid, does have to contact the parents, talk to them about them helping, because maybe they're picking up some of this conduct from home rather than at school, because presumably the school has prevented it.
Yeah, I just think that a criterion for arresting someone for a hate crime, an alleged hate crime, should be that that person knows what the hell a hate crime is, and a 6-year-old is unlikely to know that. So,
well, of course, and why terrify the youngster, or maybe they won't understand any of it at all. And that's why we don't put very young people into prison, because they're not responsible and they don't understand all the rules. But it's the job of a combination of the teachers and the parent to get them to understand sensible rules, like don't be nasty to the other kids.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking earlier that there was a case, I think it was last year, a 9-year-old kid was reported to the police for a hate crime, little girl at primary school who called her friend, said that her friend smelled of fish. And she ended up getting her collar felt by the cops. And that is the kind of syndrome that I think as a nation we should go out of our way to avoid. Don't pillory children for alleged adult offences. Ridiculous. Let's go international. This is important, John. I'm sure you'd agree. It looks as if, this is only just breaking this afternoon, that the White House and Iran are very close to an agreement. Which would involve Trump lifting all American sanctions on Iran and sealing a Obama-style nuclear deal, allowing Iran to develop nuclear power but not nuclear weapons. In other words, there seems to be a sign that Trump is about to sign a deal not dissimilar to what Obama did way back when he was president, to bring an end to this war, to open up the Strait of Hormuz. But the question then will be, well, exactly what did you achieve, President Trump?
Well, indeed, but we're going to have to see the text, aren't we? And we've had quite a number of suggestions in recent weeks that there was going to be a deal, and we've had quite a lot of suggestions that war was going to break out again. And President Trump keeps on changing his position as part of his negotiating tactics, I suppose. What would we like to see? Well, of course, we'd like to see a decent agreement which secures the position that they can never have a nuclear weapon and are not going to carry on trying to get one. And we want the Straits opened again. And one of the problems with the American intervention so far is that the idea that the Straits would be closed wasn't in people's imagination when the war started. And he now has a second war aim, which is to retrieve the position on the Straits. The sooner he does that, the better, because it's creating terrible difficulties on fertilizer prices and oil and gas prices and fuel prices with all this material stuck in ships that can't move. And think of the poor old sailors on those ships that can't get home.
Yeah, they can't get home, and they're in danger as well. There's 25,000 of them or something out there in the Strait. They've been floating around there now for weeks, poor people. Let me just ask you a last question about the Westminster scene. I've got to be careful here. You'll understand we have broadcasting rules about tomorrow's local elections. But again, I think I can safely say it doesn't promise to be a particularly fantastic day for Labour and Keir Starmer. The plots are afoot to replace him. Andy Burnham, we're told, has lined up a safe seat that he can take over in the north and expects or hopes to be in Westminster in the House of Commons fairly soon. Do you think Keir Starmer's days are numbered?
Well, who knows? Because it rests in the hands of all the Labour MPs, and they'll look at the situation after we know the council results. But it won't be mainly or only the council results that determine their views. They are forming a very negative view of their Prime Minister over many months, mainly to do with a lot of national issues and the way he's mishandled the country's affairs, and also worried about the state of the economy. I find the Burnham stories rather arrogant. I'm not sure how easy it would be for Mr. Burnham to win a by-election in these circumstances.
Yeah, maybe lose.
Because, you know, a 3-week campaign would expose the fact that here was a man who made all sorts of promises to Manchester, and the only thing he really wanted to do for the next few years was to be a great mayor of Manchester, and he walks out on the job before he's done practically any of the things he promised. And whichever Labour MP gives up their seat in the hope that he can win it has clearly misled the public, because they would have said they wanted to serve a 4 or 5 year term in Parliament, and they've given up after 2 years. And I think the constituents in such a place might say, you know what, we can't be bothered to go and vote Labour because they just mess us around.
Good point. Last question. I think probably the untold story in the local election story is that it's obviously going to be a terrible day for Labour. It might not be a great day for the Tories either. I think Kemi Badenoch, there's a strange sort of dichotomy insofar as everybody's loving Kemi at the moment, and she really has been pretty impressive over the last couple of weeks. Fantastic in dealing with that anti-Semite in that public meeting the other day. So people love Kemi, but the word is, the pollsters say that the people of this country are not ready to forgive the Tories for what they see as 14 years of mismanagement and basically creating the migrant crisis. Do you fear that disaffection with the Tories will continue?
I think it's close to the election. It's better just to wait and see what the electors want.
Yeah, I'll get back on Friday. We'll find out.
I trust the electors. Ask me after we know the result. But I do think Kemi is a breath of fresh air, and she's done a great job so far. And she has rightly apologised for the dreadful mess over migration, which was not intended but was badly managed. Whereas quite a lot of other things went rather well. I mean, I think now people would rather like Conservative policies that halved unemployment over the 14 years in office when they see unemployment surging and so many young people without jobs, for example. So it wasn't all bad news over those 14 years.
Well, as you quite rightly imply, John, we better get you back on after the elections, and we'll analyse the results together. It's always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Lord John Redwood there, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, on all the big stories of the day. When we come back, we're going to talk about a guy called Michael Haddon, who has racked up his 236th offence, another shoplifting crime, and he was let off with a conditional discharge. What is the point? What is the point of a justice system where 236 offences, off you go, no punishment? Unbelievable. We'll talk about that next. Stick around.
Is Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7, and I think
Back, welcome back. Let's talk about.
pretty encouraging, really, because that's an average.
Go away. This is my phone, folks.
Listening to it as well.
Right, let's finish that. Let's get on with the show. Let's go over to former Met Police Detective Mike Neville. Welcome, Mike. You're on the phone. I gather there's some technical difficulties, but we got you on the phone. Yes.
Yeah, I tried to. We had the audio and video sorted out earlier, but for whatever reason it can't.
Okay. Well, let's just cover this story then. What we've got here. This is the most extraordinary story. This is a guy in the Stoke area where you live called Michael Haddon. He's what you might call a career criminal. You could call him a career petty criminal, but most crimes are not petty, they're serious. This guy was in court last couple of weeks in Stoke. He had gone into Holland & Barrett, that health food shop, and nicked £192.99 worth of items from its shelf. He just walked out and he got nicked. Yep. Right, he's 38 years old. This was, wait for it folks, his 236th offence. 236 offences. So he's only 38 years old. You wonder how he's managed to fit in all these crimes. He should get the Queen's Award for Industry, shouldn't he? But when he committed this crime, Mike, he was on a community order for a previous burglary offence and went into court. And what happened to him? He got a conditional discharge. The magistrate, a guy called Mark Harrison, hailed the remarkable feat that Michael Haddon now had an address. He's got an address. So he got a conditional discharge and was asked to pay back that 192 quid. I bet he doesn't. So no punishment whatsoever for a man on his 236th offence. They say, why do people keep shoplifting? Oh, I know, because there's no punishment. What on earth was this magistrate thinking, letting this guy just walk free from court on his 236th offence? This is bizarre, frankly, Mike.
Well, it's insane, isn't it? If you look at the first thing, he stole £192 worth of goods. So that tells me he knew that the limit was this limit of 200 that was brought in by Theresa May that reduces the crime. You also have the fact that the Labour Party have got rid of the 1-year sentences, so he's never going to jail. So this man carries on, and if you think, Kevin, that 1% of thefts are solved, this man has got 238 convictions. That means he's done over 23,000 crimes, I would imagine. It's absolutely insane. All shopliftings in that area, probably.
As I say, why would a court, conditional discharge? I mean, at the very least, I think they should bang him up. You can't let someone just keep doing this. But at the very least, a fine or something. Yeah. The conditional discharge, what are they thinking?
Well, Kevin, there'll be listeners and viewers who have, gone to a 25 and a 20 limit, have done 75 on the motorway, and they're slammed with a £300 fine. Their insurance then goes up. And do you know what? It just sums up broken Britain, that the people who pay the taxes, who do their best, they're always punished. And the people who go out and steal, burgle, rob, rape, they just walk away. And it's just an absolute mess.
And, I mean, it's people like Michael Haddon that benefit from our lackadaisical, shoulder-shrugging system. That's what this is, isn't it? If you take a guy, 236th offence, and you just go, oh, sod it, conditional discharge, get out of the court. If that is your attitude after 235 or 236 offences, then, you're just going to get more and more Michael Haddons all over the country, because shoplifting, petty crime, constant crime pays.
Absolutely. You know as well as that, everybody would think, it's good to give people a first, a second, maybe even a third chance. Some people are brought up in a bad way, they're brought up in bad families, and they'll commit crime. But when somebody's on their 236th chance, it's time to lock them up, isn't it? It's time to lock them up and throw away the key, because all this man brings is misery to the local people. He just shows that crime pays, and what we need to start showing is that crime doesn't pay, and those who bring misery will be locked away, and they won't be coming out again soon.
Well, what the magistrates were lost in wonder that Michael Haddon had got an address. He's got an address now, Oh, wow, that's amazing. While they were lost in wonder about that, they should perhaps have been considering the fact that when he committed this crime, when he stole 192 quid's worth of stuff from Holland and Barrett, he was already on a community order for a pre-existing burglary offence. That should have come into play, shouldn't it?
Of course it should. And what I know is I used to deal with criminals who gave me information, Kevin. So I'd speak to these criminals, and what I know from criminals is the only punishment they fear is being locked up, their liberty being taken away. These community service orders and whatever else, they laugh at them. They know that no one will enforce them, and they know, as it hadn't, that if you do something else, it's simply nothing's done about it. In times past, if you got something like a suspended sentence, if you committed another crime, that suspended sentence would be added on to the new crime. Yeah. Now it's a case of let them all out. And you see the most stupid people. You see the likes of that Lucy Connolly woman put in prison for a tweet, and you see this character not put in prison when he's on nearly 250 crimes. It just beggars belief. It's a broken system. Yeah,
2 years and 7 months for Lucy Connolly for posting hurty words on Facebook. This guy, no time inside at all for his 236th crime. You want a snapshot of modern Britain, Mike? There it is, right there. And by the way, I hope the people at Holland and Barrett can whistle, because they can whistle for that 192 quid. There's no way that guy will pay them back. I'll guarantee you that. Mike, brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Mike Neville there, former Met Police detective. What do you think about that? Let me know. This is, as I say, this to me is a snapshot of modern Britain. A guy on his 236th offence, out on licence on a community order for burglary already, walks off from a shop with 192 quid's worth of nicked items, goes to court, 236th offence. It's a conditional discharge. Enjoy the rest of your day. What's going on? 03444991000. More madness next. We're going to talk about the government spending more than £100 million on 2 migrant detention centres, providing them with art classes, math lessons, 24-hour welfare care, NHS treatment in-house coming to you. They don't have to go to the hospital, and so on and so forth. And what is all this for? Foreign criminals who were about to deport. We're about to chuck them out of the country, and the government is about to spend £112 million on luxury conditions for them as they enjoy their last days in this country. That's not mad, is it? 03444991000. We'll talk about that next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Taking your calls in a little while, 03444991000. Very interested to hear what you think of Ryanair boss Michael O'Leary's suggestion that there should be a crackdown on drinking at airports before people get on planes. He's particularly worried about early morning drinking. You know, you get to the airport at 6 a.m. and have a couple of pints. Some people like to do that, or even other drinks as well. He says, people are climbing onto the planes drunkenly and we have to keep landing, emergency landings, all this kind of stuff. I get that. Nobody's condoning getting drunk. But isn't having a couple of pints or 3 pints at the airport a matter of your personal free choice? Do we, all these people, let's have a crackdown on that. Let's have laws on this, restrictions, rules, regulations. No. This is Great Britain. It's supposed to be a free democracy. If people want a couple of drinks at the airport before they climb on an aeroplane, then Mr. O'Leary, you can wind your neck in. They should not be stopped. I don't know if you agree with me. Let me know what you think. As I say, no one is condoning hideous drunkenness. That's wrong. But a couple of drinks, or any rule or regulation banning us from having more than 2 drinks before we get on an aeroplane. No. What do you think? 03444991000. Also, let me know what you think about that criminal we just talked about. His 236th offence, nicking 192 quid's worth of stuff from Holland and Barrett, just walking out, already on a community order for burglary, and he gets a conditional discharge. In other words, they didn't sentence him at all. They let him off. 236th offence. What's going on? 03444991000. Right, let's go over to my next guest. He is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Robert Bates. Welcome, Robert.
Evening, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Now, I'm really interested to hear what you think about this. I think this is insane. We have 2 immigration detention centres. We have a few around the country, I do believe. But the ones we're talking about, there's one at Heathrow Airport. There's another one at a place called Yarl's Wood in Bedfordshire, which isn't that far from Heathrow. Now, these are immigration detention centres. These are foreign criminals or people who've somehow or other had their asylum applications very, very strongly refused. So they're in detention and they're waiting to be deported. These are their last days in this country. The government has just earmarked spending £112 million on both of these institutions to provide 24/7 welfare care, recreation, art classes, maths lessons, and NHS in-house treatment. So sort of luxury facilities, £112 million for people, for foreign criminals. Most of these people are criminals who've broken our laws, who are literally about to be kicked out of the country, about to be put on planes and flown home. Why are we spending £112 million making their last days in this country extremely luxurious and comfortable?
I think that is the key point, isn't it? These are people that we have decided we want absolutely nothing to do with, and we are aiming to remove them from the country. I think the sheer amount that we are throwing at these pointless courses, actually, it's important to understand this is why we are told by the Home Secretary that deporting individuals is so expensive, and therefore the alternative, the cheaper alternative, is to give foreign criminals and illegal migrants, several £1,000s as a bung, bribing them to leave the country. So if we actually want to get serious on removing illegal migrants from the country and not give them a pretty payday as they leave, then I think we need to start bringing down the costs of deportations. And I think this is a perfect example of where you can start sort of scything away a lot of the nonsense that has sprung up around these detention centres. I mean, the Home Office last week put out a notice, guidance for Home Office staff on the protocols and the process through which they can supervise marriage ceremonies in immigration detention facilities. So these are pretty much now spa resort type entities. These are in no way what they should be, which is effectively military-style barracks where they get fed some porridge and then sent on their way. You know, think what we could do with 100 million or so pounds. That's quite a few plane tickets, I would argue. And I think this is just yet again indicative of we are adding all these surplus, unnecessary, pointless, warm-sounding things to what should be a pretty straightforward process and gumming ourselves up in the process.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, yeah, of course, keep these people in humane conditions. But just to reiterate my point, these people, most of these people are within days of being kicked out of the country, being put on a plane and flown home or wherever. They are literally on their last days in Britain. And we're spending £112 million making sure that those last days are luxurious. I mean, what on earth do they need maths lessons for? Why do they need art classes? At Yarl's Wood, this Bedfordshire immigration detention centre, since January last year, more than 72,000 vapes worth £200,000 have been shipped in for the inmates. Now, you know, other people, I'm not a vapor, I don't know if you are, but people who vape, they have to buy their vapes. But if you're a deportee, if you're a foreign criminal, oh no, have them free on the British taxpayer. What does this government think it's doing?
I think they've been completely in hock to the immigration lawyers that are undoubtedly representing the inmates of these detention facilities. And let's not forget, actually, a lot of these individuals will be sort of still challenging up until the very last minute their removal from the country. And they will have undoubtedly, in many cases, taxpayer-funded lawyers guiding them and fighting their corner every step of the way. And I think this is probably something that has spurned out from appeals based on the treatment that individuals have maybe received previously in these centres, and the Home Office is trying to preempt any attempt of claim of inhumane treatment and so forth by just going above and beyond. But I really don't see how math lessons, art classes and so forth are in the British interest. I mean, what is the argument for them being put on the curriculum at these places? I think actually, you know, any suggestion that this is, you know, soft power or in any way good for the country is by the wayside. And this is yet again, you know, the national interest is just so far forgotten from the minds of Labour ministers. It would surprise me if actually any of them wake up in the morning and think, how can I make the country a better place? In reality, I think what we do see is people waking up in the morning and going behind, picking up their red box and thinking, how can I actually grind the taxpayer's nose in even further? What can I do today that will be even more insulting than the thing that I did last week? Because this is just a further example. And of course, the asylum hotels, we know, are a completely different fiasco as well. They seem to be free for all, 24/7. Party central, pool tables, discos, all kinds of other treaties like that. And I think, you know, this is now spilt over into what should be a pretty rudimental administrative process. And I would argue that actually this is something that could be massively stripped back, save the taxpayer fortunes, and therefore with that extra funds start deporting a lot more people.
Yeah. Now provide these people with basic accommodation in definitely humane conditions, but there's no need to treat them as if they're sort of to treat them to luxury, as if they're some sort of VIP visitors. So I'm glad you brought up asylum seeker hotels, Robert, because there's one story that's been making, hotel's been making the papers today. It's called the Roughton Hotel in Birmingham, where pampered asylum seekers who live there, staying at our expense, of course, taxpayers' expense. It's a Grade 2 listed building, very nice place apparently. They've been provided with arcade video games and an air hockey table. Why should taxpayers be paying for that?
Well, why should taxpayers be paying for any of it? But I think in particular, these ones are incredibly insulting. I think that the bill for this nonsense of an asylum system we now still operate in this country is about £5 billion a year. You know, billions of it, of course, going on to the accommodation. But you have to kind of think, how serious are Labour ministers when they talk about closing these hotels and ending the ever-exploding fiscal crisis that this has inflicted on us, when they are doing things like this? And I just think, again, it's these small little things. It's the video games, it's the pool tables, it's the hockey tables that do filter back on these TikTok streams, on the WhatsApp groups and so forth, and actually make those that either in France or thousands of miles away, considering coming to Britain, think, oh my goodness, this looks like a lovely place. I'm going to make sure that I set my sights on that place, and I'll travel through Europe to get there, because look at the conditions that they're being treated in. Again, I think when it comes to the asylum system, especially those that have come in via illegal routes, the small boats, they should be in similar rudimental, humane accommodation around the country, detention facilities, where they can't go and spill over into the community and they can't cause trouble. I guess the argument that Home Secretary and ministers would make is that sort of keeping them entertained in-house stops them loitering on street corners or causing concern to the local community. But I do think that actually there is certain limits to what you should be doing to these individuals and what you should be giving them, because again, air hockey tables, I don't know anyone that owns an air hockey table or has it on their own private property. I think actually, again, having access to that kind of stuff, it is just treats. We are treating these people and rewarding illegal behaviour. We're rewarding them breaking into our country. It's the complete wrong way around. It's the complete inverse of what it should be.
Yeah, and given that any sensible person realises that what this country should be setting up for these migrants, the thousands of them right now gathering on northern French beaches, as also Belgium these days, ready to come across the channel in illegal small boats. What we should be setting up is deterrence. But they're going to see, if they see pictures of the Rowton Hotel in Birmingham, you've got luxurious fitted carpets, you've got all these video games, you've got a air hockey table, you've got a pool table, a full billiard table as well, snooker table. They're going to look at that. That's not a deterrent. These are not deterrents. These are enticements. They're going to go, yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. Britain really is the promised land. Bring on the small boat. It's ridiculous.
Well, exactly, and I know Robert generally gets a lot of stick for the mural that he painted over in the detention facility, but I think actually what he wasn't doing there really was sending a message to those being housed in that facility, but he was really just communicating and identifying the pull factor phenomenon that seems in Britain to be far, far stronger than any other country, and it is because we in this country, in this little island, have a peculiar habit of going above and beyond what is actually required in law. And we like to lace things with unnecessary trinkets that are nice to haves and gold plate into the land of the absurd. And this is now where we seem to be. We seem to be in the land of the absurd, where rather than treating sort of invaders in a manner that any normal functioning country would, which would be to detain them and then remove them, we are giving them effectively a VIP package that, hundreds of thousands of households around the country could only dream of going to a sort of luxurious hotel and being able to spend their evenings playing a bit of air hockey or video games and so forth. And I actually think, again, this is the British people that are having their noses deliberately rubbed in it now. It might seem small fry, a video game and so forth, but I think it's very, very symbolic of us, the people of this country, being very, very, very well and truly down the list of concerns of the people that actually govern us.
Yeah, well, not so long ago, to stay at the Rowton Hotel will cost you £150, £200 a night. Now there's hundreds of migrants, asylum seekers staying there for free with all the lovely facilities. It is absolutely absurd, Robert, but great to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much for your time. The brilliant Robert Bates there from the Centre for Migration Control. Next up, Sean Costis from The Sun with the latest on the sports front. So all that's still to come. Stay tuned.
arm of fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Director of Sport at the Sun newspaper, Sean Custis, is in the studio. Welcome, Sean. Let's talk about Arsenal. I watched some of the game last night. It wasn't very entertaining, but they got the job done.
They did get the job done. I don't think Arsenal fans cared too much that it wasn't very entertaining for them.
They're used to it.
And they like a 1-0 win, don't they, historically? Well, I would agree with you. It's not going to be as good as tonight's when Bayern Munich faced PSG, I'm sure. We had that amazing 5-4 in the first leg. Harry Kane's Bayern Munich trying to overturn that deficit. And wouldn't it be something if Harry Kane ends up in the final for Bayern Munich against Arsenal in Budapest? Because that is going to be pretty tasty. I've got to say, Arsenal, I thought last night were quite clever. They blocked up. They made sure that they got the job done. They employed some of the dark arts. Arteta's been into that. You notice he was warming his subs up. Even when he'd used all his subs, he was warming them up along the line just to create a bit of chaos and confusion. Every trick in the book they were using last night. And, you know, they've had a great week, haven't they? With City losing as well. Them winning, City losing. City drawing, not losing. But it felt like a defeat in a weird sort of way.
It kind of was, really.
And now going through the Champions League, and they can see the double on. Champions League and Premier League is very much on for them. It's 20 years since they've been in Champions. Since they played that Champions League final. I was there in 2006 when they lost to Barcelona. Had a goalkeeper sent off, and it was very difficult for them. And I think they're possibly a better side. Interestingly, Thierry Henry, who was in that team in 2006, has been saying that Arsenal will be known as the Unforgettables if they manage to pull this double off, because he's part of the Invincibles. These could be the Unforgettables.
Well, so the Invincibles will now become the Forgettables, and the new team will be the Unforgettables. But listen, this is what I fear, that Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain, particularly if Bayern Munich win that tonight, well, both those teams were going to give Arsenal one hell of a game, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think PSG, I think both sides have shown actually that they can be vulnerable. Obviously, they do let in plenty of goals, but in attack they're devastating. I'm not sure Arsenal are quite as devastating in attack, but then you might say they're the better defensive of those sides. And I mean, the scramble for tickets for Arsenal fans today has been unbelievable. There's only 17,000 tickets available in Budapest. Declan Rice is calling on 200,000 Arsenal fans to go to Budapest.
Thank you, Declan. Yeah, that won't cause any trouble, will it?
Enjoy the festival. But there's a right old scramble for tickets. The top price officially is 820 quid. That's for the top price ticket. But I'm sure there'll be a few costing a lot more than that.
Yeah, that'll be a good story.
All the flights booked, all the hotels booked, people looking to stay anywhere in the vicinity within 100 miles. At least when you're in mainland Europe, you can stay further out, get into town. And Declan has certainly set it up for a bit of a party.
Well, I'm sure there will be a party. It's going to be a tough game for Arsenal, though, and reluctantly, through gritted teeth, I'm going to wish them well. I think the Premier League now, well, it's definitely theirs to lose. They must be feeling fairly confident about that.
And they're already planning the parade for the follling day.
That's a bit big-headed.
Yeah, but it's not, is it? You know you have to plan these things, but you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You go, oh, cocky Arsenal.
Yeah.
But imagine if you've maybe won the Premier League but you've lost the Champions League the day before. Is the parade hurrah? Is it? Only the double will satisfy.
The parade was a miserable affair.
Only a double will satisfy now, I think.
Let's go back to Man City. They were out partying. Bernardo Silva's leaving, of course. We don't know where he's going, free agent and all that. How much will City miss him?
Oh, a lot. I think he's been one of the best players in the Premier League this season. Yeah. Without a doubt. He's what makes Man City tick. Guardiola doesn't think it's time for him to go, but Bernardo Silva feels he wants a new experience.
You were saying he's quite surprisingly young, isn't he? 32 or something?
Yeah, he's not past it. He'll be playing in the World Cup this summer, and he'll be one of the best players at the World Cup, I would think. Look, there's a possibility he could end up like Barcelona, maybe, who don't have any money to buy anybody, but
he's a free agent.
He's a free agent, so they give you good wages on the table. Juventus, maybe. I think he's still a bit of a way off saying, I've got the MLS. Don't think he needs to decide on that for a few years. Saudi, I'm not sure it quite has the same appeal that it did before. I think he would probably want to stay in Europe. But yeah, they had a party out for him last night for his going away party. But of course, not quite as good as it could have been, having lost 2 points against Everton the previous
I bet they didn't invite any Everton players to attend the party.
I'm sure they didn't. But look, he's been a brilliant servant for City.
He is an amazing player.
And I know when we talk about great servants and loyalty, we say, well, he was being paid a lot of money. Of course he was. But you can't argue that he's one of the most consistent players I've ever seen in the Premier League.
I totally agree.
Always 7, 8 out of 10 player.
Yeah, he's worth every penny. There's no doubt about that. It'd be interesting to see. Who would they think about replacing? Who would fulfil that role for them?
Well, maybe Phil Foden will get more of a chance to... Well... Maybe this will be his chance to stake his place in the team.
What's happened to Phil Foden?
They've seen off, De Bruyne's left, Silva's left. Can Foden fill
he needs
that gap?
He needs to get his mojo back. I think.
Does. I mean, you've got to say his World Cup place is still in the balance, isn't it?
He's a great player, but he's off the boil.
He is off the boil, yeah.
Talking of great players who are arguably off the boil, Manchester United do not want Marcus Rashford back.
It doesn't seem so. It doesn't seem they want to have him back. There was a sort of deal struck with Barcelona when he went there on loan that Barca would pay 26 million for him at the end of the season, all things being equal, but then don't really want to do that anymore. It's going to...
So they don't particularly want him either.
Well, they might take him again for another season on loan, but that doesn't suit Rashford particularly. Interestingly, he tweeted about Manchester United and say congratulations to them on qualifying for the Champions League. First time he's tweeted about Man U since last summer.
He was probably trying to get back to Man U.
This is the point. This is what people think. Is he trying to get back to Man U? He is, of course, still a Man United player, but they've given his shirt away to Matheus Cunha for a start off. He's been away on loan now at Villa and Barcelona. You don't really think of him as a Man United player anymore.
No, you don't. It's strange, that, isn't it? You're absolutely right.
I mean, he would hope that the World Cup could reinvigorate him, because while he's done okay at Barcelona, he hasn't...
Nothing special.
Nothing special. He's not a player who...
How old is he now?
Be desperate.
How old is he?
Oh, you always do things like this to me, Kevin.
30, 28.
Maybe, yeah.
Well,
I don't have to...
He could still be useful for someone,
but
that's for damn sure.
He is a decent player. I think he could have a role for England at the World Cup, but equally, if we left him behind, nobody would be surprised.
Well, all in the pages of The Sun tomorrow. Don't miss it. Next up, it's Jake Wallace-Simons. Stick around, folks.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, in a little while, he's an expert in narcissism and psychiatry, Richard Grannon. He will join us, and we're going to put Zach Polanski on the psychiatrist's couch. Try and work out what makes this guy tick. You know, why does he keep telling self-aggrandizing lies about himself? You know, what is this guy all about? So we will try to get a diagnosis from narcissism expert Richard Grannon. I don't think there's any doubt at all that Mr. Polanski, or David Paulden, as he's known to his parents, is a narcissist. We'll do that in a little while, but first up, let's spend the next 20 minutes or so in the excellent company of author and columnist Jake Wallace-Simons. Welcome, Jake.
Hello, good evening.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the Prime Minister and his response to our anti-Semitism crisis. You know, he convened this big meeting in Downing Street. That seems to be, you know, he's got a very narrow bandwidth when it comes to responding to anything. He has a two-pronged attack every time. One is he'll spew some cliches. There's no place for this sort of hatred on the streets. Anti-Semitism is the crisis for all of us. And then he'll call a meeting, which is what he's done so far. You know, as a sort of prominent member of the Jewish community, what's your response to the Prime Minister's reaction? I don't think there's any doubt that he is genuinely shocked by the extent of this explosion of anti-Semitism, but in terms of what he's going to do about it, it doesn't look to me as if he has any serious concrete plans.
No, he did announce 25 million more pounds for community security organisations, but it felt to me, as I've often said, as if he's been fanning the flames with one hand and then adding a paltry amount of funding for fire extinguishers with the other. Because I think a lot of Jews, I mean, he was heckled when he went to Golders Green with good reason, because he has been totally incompetent and complacent when the mass anti-Semitism that we see today was in its early stages after October the 7th. Of course, he wasn't in power then, but he inherited the complacency from the Tory government and then made it worse. I mean, you know, recognising a state of Palestine with the Israeli hostages still in the tunnels under Gaza without demanding that Hamas release them first was, I think, a low point for many Jews. And then, of course, the Manchester synagogue attacks happened 11 days after that. Hamas congratulated the Prime Minister when he recognised Palestine and then celebrated the attacks while he said he was appalled. So he just doesn't know whether he's coming or going. He hasn't got any answers. But, I mean, to help him out, those answers should include a specialised police unit to deal with anti-Semitism. There's been talk of that recently. A specialised CPS unit to deal with anti-Semitism. It has, you know, they've got wildlife specialist units in the CPS. Why not one for anti-Semitism? With perhaps mandatory minimum sentences for those convicted of anti-Semitism. There needs to be a crackdown on extremists up and down the country, with foreign extremists deported immediately. There needs to be an aggressive approach towards demanding assimilation. There needs to be an Ofsted-style organisation to oversee mosques to make sure that there isn't hate preaching taking place there. We need, of course, to clamp down on those hate marches. There have been talk of a moratorium and so on and so forth. They need to be really repressed. Then we need to be tough on immigration, making sure that we don't just open the door to anybody, regardless of which country they're from. If they're from a country that's where anti-Semitism is rife, they're not coming in. Simple as that. So those measures and more, including the depoliticization of universities, of our school system, and of course a counter-propaganda campaign to convince people that actually Jews and Israelis don't kill babies for fun, would be very valuable as well, and more. All of that should be on the agenda at Downing Street, but instead he's got no ideas. He's just giving a bit of money to the security services or security charities in the Jewish community and hoping for the best. So I'm setting my watch for the next attack, frankly.
Yeah, it's a sad thing to say, but I think you're right to set your watch. Along the way, just to prove that he's serious, he could ban the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and he could ban the Muslim Brotherhood.
Absolutely.
Here's another thing. I've got an idea, a particular idea. He should set the police, he should set the authorities on whoever the hell it is organising this campaign against the Jewish actress Dame Maureen Lipman, who is set to appear at Aberdeen's His Majesty's Theatre later this month for a 4-day run of a national tour of a play called Allegra, a harmless play in which she plays a woman who is relentlessly joyous, who is so relentlessly upbeat, she keeps bursting into song and she drives everybody crazy. That's what the play is about. There is a massive campaign in Aberdeen going on to stop that play, to stop her appearing purely because she's Jewish. There is material, their bump, their posters depict Dame Maureen as a devil with horns coming out of her head. You know, that old medieval idea that Jewish people hide their horns and their tails, still prospering apparently in the area of Aberdeen. Why don't the authorities... The only reason they're doing this, that poor lady, she's 80 years old. She gets this everywhere she goes. The only reason they're doing this, one reason, ban this racist, they say. No. They mean ban this Jew. That's what they're doing. Why don't the authorities, you know, make a stand and go for those bastards?
Well, I think it's quite simple. I think they haven't done a nasty tweet about an immigrant yet. And if they did that, they'll feel the full force of the law, like Lucy Connolly or the other people that we've seen being hauled through the courts, you know, fast-tracked to justice and banged up for months on end. But when it comes to Jews, there is this complacency, this blind spot. They think, you know, I think there's a sort of sense that Jews somehow, I mean, you know, I think one aspect of anti-Semitism is that it projects Jews as having supernatural evil powers. It projects Jews as being rich, in control of the media. You know, how's that going? In control of the banks, in control of everything. And so I think people think, well, it's only punching up when you're against Jews. And it's so the failure to act is part of the anti-Semitic attitude, if you see what I mean. In reality, Jews are living as no other minority lives, almost behind fortresses when they go to synagogue and school and so forth. I mean, no other minority, you would say. I mean, imagine Lenny Henry starring in a play in Aberdeen and being hounded out or attempted to be hounded out because he's black. That is the exact equivalent of what we're seeing taking place, and nobody gives a monkey's. It's absolutely outrageous. From the Prime Minister downwards, there's a rot that's set into our society. The anti-Semites are exploiting our complacency and our luxury complacency, and nobody is waking up, smelling the coffee or smelling the blood, frankly, and doing anything about it. Jews are angry. And, you know, as we know, they are leaving in large numbers, particularly those who are, to use that unpleasant phrase, visibly Jewish. They're getting out of here. They're going to Israel, where they feel that they can be safe. I mean, you know, sorry to go on, but an Iranian dissident journalist who was stabbed by Iranian stooges in London, in Wimbledon, in 2024, you know where he's gone for safety? Israel. He's gone to Israel. He feels safer in Israel than he is in Wimbledon. So I'm struggling to control my language. We're just pathetic. We are pathetic. We've got to wise up and get real with this.
Yeah, I should say I didn't control my language just now, but like Jake, I get very annoyed about this. Those people in Aberdeen should be found, located and prosecuted. Therefore, you make a stand against anti-Semitism. So if anyone was offended by my strong word just now about these perpetrators of this awful crime, apologies, but you know where I'm coming from. Still with anti-Semitism, Jake, let's talk about Zach Polanski and the Green Party. Steve Reid, the Labour cabinet minister, writing in the papers at the weekend that he's seen what's happening. He said all the vile Jew-hating anti-Semites that he used to encounter in Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, as far as he can work out, they've all left and joined the Greens. Now, either wittingly or unwittingly, Zach Polanski, a Jew himself, seems to have created a safe haven for Jew haters.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, the Green Party has gone from being a kind of sandal-wearing, spinach-munching load of irrelevant old crusties to the most anti-Semitic party probably in the Western world, frankly, I would suggest. And it's done it under the auspices of Zach Polanski, himself famously Jewish, you know, who has turned his party into the Corbyn wing of the Labour Party without the moderate bit. And, you know, the fact that he's Jewish is just so disgraceful and so repulsive, because he's using his identity, to use that term, as a cover for those who would seek to marginalize, persecute, and indeed even kill Jews like him if they could. There could be, I mean, he is a traitor, frankly. He is treacherous, he is a traitor, and he is in the tradition of the blood libel. He's accused Israel of, quote unquote, killing a baby or a child every 45 minutes, load of rubbish on Twitter, articulating that blood libel, which started in Norwich in 1144. That was when Jews were first accused of killing kids for fun. The person who first made that accusation was called Theobald of Cambridge, 1144. He himself was a Jew who converted to Christianity and said, oh, when I was a Jew, that's what we used to do. So the blood libel is a Jewish invention. Those treacherous Jews have been a feature of our community's life since 1144, and I see Zach Polanski in exactly the same light. He is converted not to Christianity, but to hard left politics, where hatred of Jews is an entry ticket into the higher echelons, into polling success. It's absolutely despicable and repulsive, and I just can't bear the man.
And on the same subject, what did you make of these revelations in the Times today? That apart from, you know, he's a shameless huckster. You know, what do you want me to, what would you know, what do the Greens stand for? His response is, well, what do you want them to stand for? They'll stand for whatever you, oh, you want free legal heroin, do you? Sure, all yours. Oh, you want to completely open the borders and let everybody in and then give them free houses? Yeah, you got it, and so on and so forth. What did you make, though? It now looks as if this guy just lies at will. He's a serial, self-aggrandizing liar. What did you make of the story in the Times today that he lied when he said that he had been an official spokesman for the British Red Cross? He'd been no such thing. And B, he said that he was a member of the Professional Hypnotherapists Association because, of course, he used to earn a living conning women out of money, persuading them that he could increase the size of their busts through the power of hypnotism. He was never an official hypnotherapist. Two lies demonstrated there. On the BBC this morning, he said, I used the wrong word. No, mate, you lied. He's a liar, isn't he?
It's weird. There's a sort of female thing going on. You know, there was that graphic going around the other day on social media showing that if only women up to the age of 50 had a vote and nobody else in a general election right now, the Greens would storm in with a massive majority, a sort of unprecedented majority. There's something about Zach Polanski that appeals to the female vote, particularly under 50s, and I've got no clue why. I mean, this is a man, the self-styled breast whisperer, you know, who allegedly claimed that he could hypnotize women to increase the size of their breasts, and he said that he had apologized for that, and it was before he'd entered politics. But I mean, apology, I mean, you can't, I mean, who does that? You can't just do that and then apologize and expect to be fine. I mean, as somebody who claims to be able to hypnotize women's breasts to grow, I mean, that's somebody who's got a screw loose, if you ask me. So it's no surprise that these further revelations are coming out about him pretending, allegedly, to be a Red Cross spokesman when he wasn't. I'm sure more is yet to come. But the thing about Polanski is that he's a dangerous man because he knows how to play the electorate. He's very good on social media. For example, as this story broke this morning, he was tweeting his support for the Red Cross and a link to donate, you know, appealing to that, you know, I'm being smeared by the media, but I'm just a great upstanding person who wants to do the best for charity and fairness and kill the billionaires and all that stuff. And it appeals to a lot of people, particularly women. And that is why he's, I think, the most dangerous figure in British politics.
Yeah, so someone said he lies through his teeth, which is no mean feat, trying to get through that sort of massive gravestones he's got in his mouth. I should play, in the interest of balance, what Zach Polanski told the BBC's Radio 4 news show today, this morning. So here is Zach.
You've made a series of false or disputed claims about jobs you've had in the past. Why, for example, did you say you were a spokesperson for the British Red Cross when they are absolutely clear that though a supporter of theirs, you were never a spokesperson for them?
So I hosted various fundraisers for the British Red Cross, and indeed I would go on stage and speak for them about the amazing work they do tackling humanitarian crises, on the climate crisis, and indeed for refugees all around the world. I used the wrong word, and I accept that. It's important, though, and I accept this, that they don't support any political party, and I've made sure that's been taken down.
Well, that's what he says. I like the way, Jake, that he says, I used the wrong word. Well, no, you lied. That's what you did.
Yeah, it's like me saying, I'm Prime Minister. Oops, used the wrong word. I mean, why would you? I mean, why? I'm the breast whisperer. Oh no, I'm not. Sorry, that was a mistake. I mean, who makes those kind of mistakes? Somebody very, very strange indeed.
Yeah, his approach seems to be apologise and be damned. Saying sorry, very rare apology on his part for those tweets that he outrageously liked, suggesting that the courageous cops who arrested the Golders Green stabbing suspect were guilty of police brutality. They clearly were not. They clearly did something very brave and kept people safe. For all they knew, they were about to get exploded, blown to kingdom come. Even he realised in the slipstream of his outrageous tweets that he'd gone too far, and he just said, "Oh yeah, sorry about that. Shouldn't have done that." I mean,
those comments had his popularity plummet to below Nigel Farage's by about 10 or 15 points, I think. So obviously it was significant. But you just get the feeling that's the only reason why he apologised. You just think, well, look, have some guts and just say what you mean and stand by it, for goodness sake. You objected to the police arresting this guy because you've got your sympathies for Palestine blinds your sense of justice and blinds you to real concern for actual attempted murder. That's why you objected to the police kicking this guy while they arrested him, because your instinctive sympathies are with him. It's not good enough to do something and then apologise and think that that's fine. It's like you're not a toddler drawing on the wallpaper. Do you know what I mean? Where you can just say, "Oh, sorry," and then it's all fine. You are a politician leading a major and repulsive party, anti-Semitic party, in my view, that's in an insurgent force in British politics that is very dangerous, that's sweeping up a lot of left-wing support to the detriment of all of us. You've got to be clear about what you believe so people know who you are and can then not vote for you. It feels dishonest to the public, I think.
Yeah, and 30, I've got to be careful with the local elections, obviously, but we can say that 30 candidates, Green candidates at the local elections around the country are under investigation for serious anti-Semitism, one for calling Jews cockroaches. These are the kind of people that it seems are being attracted to Zach Polanski's Green Party. They don't seem to be at all interested in environmentalism in the planet or anything like that. But if you want to hate Jews, the Greens are the party for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the Green Alliance, the planet and the Islamists. And frankly, it just makes me go green about the girls, just giving some thought. I wish we didn't have to talk about these people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, but I'm afraid we have to, because he has managed to barge his way into the limelight. Let's hope he has a bad day tomorrow going forward. Jake, fantastic to have you on the show as always. Thank you so much for your time. That's the brilliant Jake Wallace-Simons, author and columnist. You can read his work in The Telegraph. He's written 2 books. One's called Never Again, How the West Betrayed the Jews and Itself, and another one is called Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred and what to do about it. Both very good reads, and you can read his stuff in The Telegraph and other papers as well. Right, let's go to break. When we come back, it's Zach Polanski again. We're going to put him on the couch, see if we can work out what he's all about. We're going to talk to narcissism expert Richard Grannon, so you don't want to miss that.
system of fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Yeah, we're going to put Zach Polanski on the couch with the help of my next guest. He is a narcissism expert. He's an expert on narcissistic abuse. Richard Grannon. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much for having me back on.
Always a pleasure. Now, I thought of you because, you know, we've been charting, we've been chronicling Zach Polanski over the past few weeks for obvious reasons, the leader of the Green Party. It's been exposed that he's been telling quite a few self-aggrandising lies about himself. You know, I was a spokesman for the British Red Cross. He wasn't. I was a member of the Hypnotherapists Professional Association. He was not. And so on and so forth. The lies that he tells about himself are self-aggrandising. Is that not classic narcissism?
I'm afraid it is. I think, like, if you can see evidence that somebody's tried to create a false self that's split away from who they truly are, you know, that the guy has a background in theatre and in acting. He has changed his name, and maybe this is some hyper-idealized narcissistic fantasy he's got. Zach Polanski is his own creation, his own character, maybe. And yeah, he seems like a guy who can't help himself, can't stop the impulse to add to that story, to make Zach Polanski seem even more wonderful, even more virtuous than we already thought he was.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you just made there. I mentioned this earlier in the show. You know, even his name is a lie. His real name is David Polden. He says he changed his name for family reasons. He didn't like his stepfather, etc., etc. And the Polanski apparently is a reference to his grandfather, a Jewish escapee from the Nazi horrors. So, you know, respect to all of that. But you can't help feeling that David Polden is not quite the charismatic name that Zach Polanski is. Do you see what I'm saying? He has created a pretty glamorous name for himself, which I think is symptomatic of the man.
Yes, I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say, in a sense, the choosing of the name Polanski is verging on stolen valor. And it would feed into a pretty strong narcissistic defense of victimhood, because it signals a direct lineage to the Holocaust, and so that makes him of more virtue, of more value, in accordance with his infantile utopian worldview. And I do think it lends itself to the idea of having created whole cloth a character. And this character won't last. It can't last. It has to fall apart.
Well, that's interesting. What did you just say? I'm going to nick that. What was it? Infantile utopian worldview. I'm nicking that. Very good. But narcissists, do they find it easy to lie?
That they have to lie. I mean, the very construction. I'm not saying he has narcissistic personality disorder, but if he did, the very nature of the personality disorder, the root of the pathology, is to keep reality at bay, is to keep truth at bay. So lying is a downstream consequence of that. The whole the whole identity is a fabrication. The whole experience of life is a fabrication. They're constantly changing feedback to the environment and editing it inside of their own head to say, this is why I'm special. This is why I'm entitled to certain privileges and certain behaviors and to the garnering of narcissistic supply in the form of adulation. I think it's very interesting that he pivoted from acting to politics. I mean, it's not proof of a pathology, but it's a narcissistic choice.
He's a person who wants a stage. Do you see what I mean? That I suggested this earlier. He studied drama at university, went to Aberystwyth, and I suspect he's a guy who would have revelled in becoming some kind of TV star, showbiz star. That opportunity did not afford itself to him. He's moved on to another stage. My interpretation of his approach to politics is he doesn't really care what he says or does as long as he's on TV, as long as he's centre stage, as long as he is the centre of attention. That's what I feel. Would you concur with that assessment?
I would, and I think it's very interesting you've said that. There's research on left-wing authoritarianism. One of the research is called Bertram's, if people want to look that up. And they came up through the research with the idea that when you're looking at left-wing type authoritarianism, you do see Machiavellianism and narcissism and psychopathy. But they said they came up with this idea, I think it's called the dark ego vehicle theory, where fundamentally the people they were researching, they didn't actually believe in anything. They weren't socialists. They're not left-wingers. They were only socialist in an environment where being left-wing at that moment in history, at that moment in culture, gathers you power. And if being right-wing was the thing, then they would just as quickly absorb that. They don't believe in anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of evidence to suggest that. And don't forget that not so long ago, this guy was a member of the Lib Dems. He was a Lib Dem politician who swiftly changed. And when he got to the Green Party, of course, to be fair to him, he changed the Green Party. I think it was not good enough for him to just say, oh, well, let's save the planet, net zero and all that. He wanted to widen the spectrum of green politics so he could sound off about virtually everything. But when he says things like, Richard, like, oh, let's legalise heroin, let's legalise crack, I think it's just my interpretation of that is it's just purely saying something shocking so that people think about him, he gets noticed, it puts him centre stage.
I think you raise a great point, and we can look at historical fact here. This is a man who made money by pretending to be a hypnotherapist and telling women he could hypnotize them into their breasts growing larger. He's not got somebody who could do that has no moral core. They have no core belief system. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they want. I agree with you. I think it's a great way. It's free marketing, isn't it? You say legalize heroin, you're going to get loads of news articles written about you. So the narcissistic personality, attention is attention. It can be very, very bad. It can be very, very critical. But as a narcissist, I can still draw supply from that because I'm still important. I don't just need good attention. I'll take bad attention. So yeah, I think he's quite a cheap trickster, me personally. And I do think that saying legalizing heroin was one of his cheap tricks.
So to summarise, Richard, as a leader of a major or growing political party, I mean, they're becoming a serious political force. We should worry about this man, shouldn't we?
I think so, because I think people are lending force and lending power to a simulation of a man, an avatar, an infantile fantasy. And I'll say it again, it will collapse. It can't survive. None of these infantile trauma-based responses to reality that are rooted in fiction can survive long term. This is not a man that will show resilience in the long term, I don't believe. I think he'll collapse.
Fascinating stuff. Richard, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure. Richard Grannon there, a narcissism expert. He believes Zach Polanski's a classic narcissist who just lies, tells self-aggrandizing fibs about himself, and that he will implode. And maybe we're seeing that process already, you know, because he's such a loudmouth, because he's put himself centre stage. Scrutiny is unfolding. He's being scrutinised, and by God, he's being found wanting. Listen, we're going to go to break in just a second. But earlier, I talked to Robert Bates about these new immigration detention centres. They're not new, but the £112 million being spent on these facilities, you know, math lessons, art classes, and so on and so forth. And I neglected to give you the Home Office statement about all of this, only fair that I do. So this is what the Home Office said about these two immigration detention centres that we focused on earlier with Robert Bates from the Centre for Migration Control. Here we are. This is what the Home Office said. We make no apologies for investing in facilities that enable us to deport foreign criminals and remove illegal migrants as quickly as possible. These investments are essential to delivering reforms that will allow us to tackle illegal migration and increase removals. We have already removed nearly 60,000 people with no right to be here as Europe's largest immigration removal facility. Heathrow IRC, as well as Yarl's Wood, will be central to accelerating this work further. Competitive procurement processes are underway at both sites to deliver value for taxpayers in future operating contracts while maintaining the safe and secure operation of both facilities. That's what the Home Office had to say about these two immigration detention centres that we spoke about earlier. Let's go to break. When we come back, all of your calls, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're going to go to the phones in just a second. I don't know if we've got any WhatsApp voice notes, but I'll investigate. If we have, we'll play them out. A couple of texts and WhatsApp texts that you've been kind enough to send in. I'll read some more throughout the next half an hour or so. This is Steve in East Yorkshire. He says about Angela Rayner talking to those schoolboys. Rayner talking more lies. Farage never said he'd privatise the NHS. He said reform would offer tax relief on private healthcare subscriptions as an incentive to take up private care, thus reducing pressure on the NHS. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm pretty certain that Reform UK's policy is not to privatise the NHS. So even if it was, it's a dubious thing to be spewing to school kids, a Labour politician, you know, spewing propaganda to school kids. But it's not true. I mean, you know, Reform UK do not want to privatise the NHS. This is what Labour say this about all other parties. Oh, the Tories, they want to privatise the NHS. No, they don't. They just don't. This is from Steve in Cheshire. He says, I think you should go easy on Dave. He's talking about David Paulden, a.k.a. Zach Polanski. He says he's trying to lie through his teeth, but clearly they're just falling out of his mouth. Yeah, they don't seem to fit, do they? It'd be a lucky break for him if his tombstone started to fall out. He explained the other week, true story apparently, you know, that weird mouthful of tombstones that he's got. Apparently his milk teeth never fell out. So he's got all these teeth all over the place, and his kids' milk teeth are still there. It is a well-known condition, apparently. But anyway, that explains why Zach Polanski, apart from all his other problems, is very dentally challenged. Let's go to the phones. Let's talk to Ian in London. Hello, Ian.
Hello, Kev. Kev, can I say two things very, very quickly?
Go for it, yeah.
Both in, right? A big thank you to UCH Hospital last night. I was in there, but I'll tell you something, the NHS is absolutely on its knees. 11 hours.
11 hours? What was wrong with you? Can I ask?
No. It was my girlfriend.
Okay.
She had a problem, but we were in there for 11
hours. In A&E, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
A&E.
my God,
And
that's ridiculous.
And also it was ridiculous. The place is full of it. And the staff said, quite simply, a lot of the time, it's people that are coming in, they don't want to sort of sign up with surgeries because they can't prove who they are.
Yeah.
So basically, they're going to the hospitals because they're told you've got to treat them. And
Yeah. I mean, it avoids them, you know, that these are people who often aren't registered with GPs, or even if they are, they can't get an appointment. So the easiest thing to do is go into A&E. People go into A&E with colds, you know, with the flu and things like that, and it's ridiculous. And
also, another minor thing with it all, there was 4 people that were under arrest, 16 policemen and policewomen in there.
Yeah.
4 each on each of them.
Why there's so many coppers needed for all these jobs? Did you, just off on a tangent, did you see that story last week, Ian, about the cult, the Islamic cult up in Crewe? They've got a big building there, and they were raided because somebody accused them of nicking her money and not improving her life, something like that. Anyway, so they were raided by the police. How many coppers went to... There's 150 people live there, by the way. How many coppers do you think took part in that raid? I'll tell you, 500. It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
It is just... It is. It's like... It's just... The whole... It just shows you the whole country is going...
Nothing seems to make much sense, and you know, 20 coppers on a sort of road accident. It's just absurd. It's absurd. Anyway, listen, you wanted to talk about Zach Polanski. What would you like to say?
Yeah, sorry. With Zach Polanski, it's not only him. The whole of the left or the Green Party, and even with that, Stephen Reid says, oh, all the anti-Semites left the Labour Party. Is he off his head? Is he off his head? But with Polanski, you've got that Caroline Lucas, the same thing, in Brighton. The worst area in the country for anti-Semitism really is in Bristol, which is another Green Party MP.
I mean, I mean, I don't know, but that's probably debatable. I think Birmingham must run it a close second at the very least.
But I don't think there's a Green MP up there.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? But
I mean, when Steve Reid said that he remembers the days of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party, and he said that all the awful anti-Semites who used to be in Labour then, he said they've all quit and joined the Green Party. From what we've seen over the last few days, that seems to be a very plausible story. 30 Green candidates in the local elections are under investigation for serious anti-Semitism. It seems to be a valid point that Steve Reid was making, doesn't it?
What about Richard Bergen? Asperner Bergum, is it?
Well, I wouldn't. I'm not going to accuse Richard Bergen of anti-Semitism because he's not here to defend himself. But do you see what I'm saying? That the Green Party seems to have become a safe haven for Jew-hating anti-Semites.
Oh, it is the whole of the left, unfortunately. And the silly thing, as I said before, the left originally, and the Labour movement, was started by Jewish people. That's the ridiculous thing.
Yeah, well, I think the Labour Party, I do genuinely think the Labour Party is a lot better than it used to be. I mean, it was a festering cesspit of anti-Semitism when Jeremy Corbyn was in charge. It's a lot better than that. But you're right, Ian. The suggestion that every single anti-Semite has left the Labour Party is a long shot. They've still got their problems, but it's not quite as acute as it used to be. But I do think it's fair to say the Greens do have an acute anti-Semitism problem, and that Polanski is probably responsible for that. Listen, Ian, great call. Thank you for ringing, and please call me again. Ian in London. Shall we... let's go to... all right, we'll take one more call. Let's talk to Derek in Dorset. Hello, Derek.
Hello there.
What would you like to say? Crime.
Regarding a conversation you had earlier on.
The guy that got 236 offences and was given a conditional discharge for his 236th offence. What is that all about?
Yeah, right. In the old days, I joined the Met in the late 50s from the military. Mm-hmm. And I used to patrol the air central London. And there was one particular case I remember where there was a persistent offender who was stealing from the doorsteps of houses and also doing a little bit of shoplifting, and he incurred numerous criminal offences, all very, very minor. But because he was persistent, the magistrates had the power to refer him to the judge to be considered to be deemed as an incorrigible rogue.
Yeah.
And if the judge agreed with that, the judge then had the power to send that person to prison for quite some considerable time. And as a result, we very seldom suffered from persistent offenders because of that power, which I think was granted under the Vagrancy Act of 1824, I think.
Well, I mean, of course, the magistrates have always got they often have the option to send people to Crown Court, for jury trials, but they can also send people to jail themselves. And certainly this character, a 236th offence, and he just gets a conditional discharge. That is frankly absurd.
Well, the offences that he was committing, none of them would have incurred individually a prison sentence.
Yeah, but if you got if you got 235 previous offences, there comes a point where you have to draw the line, doesn't there?
Yeah, and the system worked exceptionally well.
Yeah, well, a lot of things used to work well in the past, and we got rid of all those systems. Crazy, Derek, but thank you for a good call. Let's go to a break. Derek in Dorset there. Let's go to a break. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your messages. Stick around.
Starmer fueling anti-Semitism?
I don't think he's doing anything to deal with anti-Semitism. The attempt to gaslight the British people and the Jewish community is appalling.
This has to stop. It's almost being normalised, and it's terrifying, and we're sick of it. Enough's enough.
Don't be shocked, and don't you bloody dare claim to be shocked or upset or care about Jewish people being stabbed on the streets of our capital city in broad daylight. This is on you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Couple more texts. Arena says, let's not make any mistakes here. If Andy Burnham gets in, we will continue going through the second coming of the Dark Age. He's very left-wing. Yeah, I mean, it could be worse than Starmer. I mean, come on. Good point, Zarina. This is from Amanda. She says, Zach Polanski is just a sad individual who wants to make a name for himself. He's had his moment in the sun and is now paying the price. Not sure he's paying much of a price so far, but he does seem to be going downwards, plummeting in the popularity polls due to his alleged sponsoring of anti-Semitism in the Green Party. A lot of traditional members of the Green Party dismayed about the direction that party is heading in. It certainly never seems to talk about the environment anymore, does it? When's the last time you heard him talk about net zero or saving the planet? Never talks about that, ever, ever. What have the Green Party become? You decide. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Steve in Blackpool. Hello, Steve.
Thanks for a great show.
Thank you, mate.
Week in, week out, brilliant. I work in drug addiction. I'm a mental health worker, and I was listening to what they were saying on Ryanair, and it's all well and good saying let's ban people from drinking, but probably 2/3 of the people that fly on planes, young kids, they all do drugs. So how's he going to do the drug detection? So that so if he's going to go for it, and I was on a plane a couple of months ago, and I saw it kick off with which turned out was ketamine and booze.
What, on a plane?
Yeah.
What time was that? What time was that, Steve? Was it an early morning flight?
Yeah, 7:15.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Booze and special K, ketamine and drink, 7:15 in the morning. Unbelievable. Well, that's the drugs is another problem. I just feel no one is condoning people getting onto planes drunk as skunks. I mean, that's wrong, obviously. But I do not want more little rules, regulations, laws preventing British citizens who live in a free democracy from having a pint at 6 in the morning at the airport if they want to have one. So, Michael O'Leary, sorry, but no thanks.
Well, the only thing I'd say is maybe if Michael O'Leary wants to develop this, what he does on Ryanair is maybe the suspects, the ones that are in the queue, because we all queue for long enough to get on the damn planes.
Yeah.
Breathalyse them, and if they're over a limit, let them go on. I mean, I can go with that, but.
I'm not even sure about that, to be honest with you. I mean, who's going to decide whether or not someone warrants a breathalyzer? I mean, these are people getting on an aeroplane to go on holiday abroad somewhere. I mean, treat them like sort of public enemy number one. You're only allowed 2 drinks, breathalyze you. I mean, it's all so illiberal, isn't it?
It is, and the other thing is Mr. O'Leary is attacking, as you say, his main market, which is people going on holiday, and they all like a few scoops, don't they? So it's
I think there's another. Some people are suggesting that Michael O'Leary doesn't want people to have too much to drink in the airport because he wants to sell them alcohol on the plane. You see what I mean?
Never thought of that one.
It's true. I mean, I know where he's coming from. He's talking about the number of planes that Ryanair have to ground, in emergency circumstances because of drunk passengers. Well, that's really bad, but I don't see why the majority should be punished because of the antics of the unruly minority. Steve, good call. Thank you for ringing. Call me again. Steve in Blackpool there. Let's go to, by the way, Peter Cardwell will be in just a few minutes to let you know what she's got lined up for you. He's got lined up for your entertainment from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. So that in a little while. Peter in the studio. But first, let's talk to Jill in Cornwall. Hello, Jill.
How are you, Kevin? All right?
I'm okay, yeah. What would you like to say?
Well, everything I'm hearing, I dislike intensely. I'm sorry. We've got politicians who break the law that could be running the country. Brilliant. We've got justice systems that just don't seem to work, and a police force that just doesn't seem to work either. I mean, where is this? Where are we going with this?
Where are we heading? You're right, Jill. Where are we heading when a man with 236 offences to his name, who's out on licence for a burglary offence, goes into court charged with shoplifting 200 quid's worth of stuff from Holland and Barrett, 236th offence, and his sentence, well, it's not sentence, he literally is let off. He's given a caution and then let off. Where are we heading with this? It's ridiculous.
Well, this is it. This is it. I mean, the next thing here is we'll be setting up some sort of place where people can go to be getting an award for being the worst criminal in the country. I mean, for goodness sake, judges should, and I always thought judges had the
well, this is a magistrate, but same kind of deal. Go on.
It's the same thing, isn't it? They all have to fall in line with keeping the law in this country. And when it looks like they don't bother about it, then the criminals don't bother about it. And the police lose their... we criticise the police, but I can see why sometimes it must be so depressing to be a police person that you've chased someone for goodness knows how long. He sits in front of the judge after murdering someone, gets 4 years.
Yeah, and people wonder, Jill, they go, why is everybody shoplifting? Why is shoplifting exploding? You know, why is it become a national scourge? Well, we just found it's because no one gets punished for it.
Exactly. No, there is no such thing anymore as having to pay the price for breaking the law.
Yeah, well, this guy, I mean, the idea that somebody on his 236 offence, you know, is given a conditional discharge, that's just ridiculous. What message does it send to the public? What message does it send to him? The message it sends to him, his name is Michael Haddon, he's 38 years old. As I said earlier, congratulations on fitting in all these offences. He's been a very busy lad, hasn't he? 236 offences, he's only 38 years old. But the message that he got sent by that court is carry on nicking, carry on shoplifting, carry on breaking the law, because we aren't going to punish you. That is a dysfunctional country in action, Jill.
Well, this is just it. And you wonder why people break the law when there is no punishment or when you get to everything that you do and there is no one down the line that punishes you, whether it's the police or the justice system, you can see why people don't take any notice of it.
There's got to be consequences, and right now there aren't any consequences. There must be punishments, and right now there aren't any punishments. It's just absurd, Jill. Good to talk to you as always, Jill in Cornwall. Now, Peter Cardwell's in the studio. He's going to take you through to 10 p.m. What have you got lined up for the audience?
Good evening, Kevin. You well?
I'm okay, yeah.
Yeah, Polanski under pressure. These many instances of anti-Semitism, also the lies he is told about his previous rules. We'll get into all of that. We'll also talk about incredibly lazy civil servants, some of whom haven't been in the office for 2 years. Some of them are driving up to the office, logging into the Wi-Fi, and then driving home, because if they log into the Wi-Fi, it says they are there. It's an astonishing scandal.
So they're working from home already, but they're required to sometimes turn up, but then they're even not doing
well,
that.
it's monitored by when they log into the Wi-Fi. So they go to nearby the office, near the Wi-Fi, log in, and then drive home. Some of them haven't been in the office for 2 years. Seriously, it's crazy.
I forgot that if they're asked, why haven't you been turning up to work? I've forgotten where it is.
Yeah, I've forgotten where it is, exactly. We're also talking about nurseries urged to report racist toddlers to the police.
What's that about?
And asking whether naming a road in Melton Mowbray Pork Pie Way is demeaning to pigs.